All right, thank you everybody for being here. It is 3 o'clock and we are going to start our Administrative and Finance Committee special budget hearing. First order of business will be called to order and roll call. I am Mike Milkey. I'm present and we'll start with Stephen next. Stephen? Here. Alder Wolf?
Here.
Alder Benash?
Here.
Mayor Kim Smith?
Here.
Alder Lohendorf?
Here.
Alder Jurassic is not present yet. We will update the record when he shows up. On to item 2, this will be consideration and action on minutes from the previous meeting. And from my understanding, this is the meeting from last year's budget hearing. Is that correct?
No.
Approving the A and F meeting.
ANF meeting from last month?
Yes.
Okay, sorry.
And as reminders, the three that will be making motions and voting tonight are Alder Knott, Alder Milkey, and Alder Lohendorf.
Thank you. Do we have a motion for the actions minutes from the previous meeting?
So moved.
We have a second?
Second.
All right, we have it's been motion to consider to approve the meetings from the previous meeting by Alder Knott and second by Alder Lohendorf. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. On to item 3, this will be public input, limited to 3 minutes per individual. Do we have anybody from the public who would like to give input? Second call. Amanda, do we have anybody online that would want to give input? Okay, third and final call. Public input is now closed. Next, move on to item 4. This is the 2026 proposed executive budget, including budgets for general fund, special revenue funds, debt service funds, enterprise funds, the capital project funds, and community development authority funds. And I'm going to hand this over to our city administrator, Rick Niemeyer, to open this up, and then we will take it from there.
Great. Thank you, Alder Milkey. Good afternoon and welcome to our annual special budget meeting. So I just wanted to say a couple of words here before we get started. Some of you have been through this process before. For some, it's new, and for others, it's been a little while. As you have seen this year, I did add a couple of different things, and I just want to touch on those, even though we've gone through them a little bit before. So at the October council meeting, there was a presentation that I did give in regards to the budget, 2026 budget. I compared the 2026 budget to previous budgets, as well as gave some high-level overview of some of the things that are in the 2026 budget for this year as well. You also notice that in the budget book, the cover pages had a little additional information in there this year. It addressed some of the increases and the decreases in each respective budget, addressed any staffing changes or staffing requests that had been made as well too. I did those couple of things for a couple of different reasons. One is I wanted to give a high-level overview of our processes and what the budget looks like. In addition, I wanted to also be able to try and answer some of the questions that might come up before they come up, so to speak. But I was doing that not only for the council members, but I was also doing it for purposes of the public. For any of those members of the public who are kind of following along or looking at our budget process or what those numbers are, I was trying to give as much information and basic information as possible to help them understand those kinds of things. So my goal was to provide as much information as possible, because my goal for today is to make today's meeting as efficient as possible. I know in the past we have gone over department by department in regards to looking at the budget as an overall budget. What I'm going to suggest today is that instead of doing the budget by budget, that we answer the questions that each alderperson may have on a respective budget, respective line item, whatever the case might be. Part of that is because, again, you've had some time now to go over the different items, the different budgets, review the information that's been provided. And so we're here today to answer any of those questions that you might have. So that is the goal for today. Everybody's time is valuable. And so just trying to be mindful of that. So assuming that's how we go forward today, we can jump into the budget portion of it. And unless there's any comments or questions, we can start out with the revenue section. So, all right, turn it back over to.
Yeah, thank you. Sabrina, did you want to say anything to start also?
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon. In front of you, I gave you 3 sheets of paper. First one I'd like you to take a look at is the one that's stapled. This is our final equated statement of assessment for 2025. This tells you the total value of land and improvements in the city of Onalaska. I promised I would give you this. It wasn't ready before we made the full budget book, but normally this would go under the assessment tab in the budget book. So that's the first thing. Next, if you could take a look at the annual mill rate changes for the city of Onalaska. Again, these numbers are preliminary. I don't want to say final until we send everything off to the county and we finalize our budget. But the mill rate for 2025, what we're looking at right now, again, the taxing year is 2025, but we'll collect the tax in 2026, well, 2025 and 2026, but this affects our 2026 budget. The mill rate is 3.82098. This is a 21.7% decrease from the mill rate from 2024. So we knew our mill rate was going to go down because of the reval of all of the properties in the city of Onalaska. So what this means is if your assessed value in the city of Onalaska increased by 20%, you may see a small decrease in your taxes. Again, this is just the city's portion. This is not the portion for the school district and the county and all of those. This is just the city's portion. I will be collecting all of the taxing information from all the other jurisdictions over the next couple of weeks. And we'll be getting that all prepared and sent off to the county at the end of November. So at some point you will see an email from me stating what the total final mill rate is going to be, including all taxing jurisdictions. So that's what the second sheet is. And then the third sheet, for those of you who've been on council, you'll understand what this is, but those of you that are new, this is our budget changes from the 2026 proposed budget submission. So any changes that are made here tonight, or I should say this afternoon and tonight, and anything that may come up between now and next Monday when we have the budget hearing will be listed on this budget change sheet. There is one, now that we have our final mill rate, I was able to calculate the final for the Gunderson parking ramp. So you can see the one change there is related to the parking ramp and again, having the final mill rate to be able to calculate how much levy we have to put into the parking ramp.
Thank you, Sabrina. And also before we kind of get to the council members, Mayor, did you have anything you want to say?
No, I just want to really thank staff and Rick. Really a lot was put into this budget. We had a special work group, Council President Stephen Knott, myself, and the department heads along with Sabrina and Rick really did a deep dive into trying to find innovative ways to find new funding sources, as well as exploring things that we could remove from the city budget to try to help us, put us in a stronger position with the levy limits and expenditure restraints, as we've talked about multiple times before. It's just very difficult creating a municipal budget from year to year. And I think one of the things that's difficult about a municipal budget is you're not only budgeting for the current year, you need to think about the next year. And that is where people kind of falter in this, in that they only look at the 1 year. And I think when we did the capital improvement budget, we did a really good job of capturing that by using, well, we can talk about that next week or tomorrow. No, next week. We'll talk about the capital improvement budget next week. But tonight we're here talking about this budget. And I think, you know, although not popular, we did come up with some strategies, but I do think that we do need to make sure that we remain very conservative in any kind of growing of our budget, because we want to make sure that any opportunities that we have that we use them to make sure that we're taking care of the people that we have on staff, because it's harder and harder to maintain good people, and that is the biggest part of our budget. And we have a huge amount of it to public safety, which is very important and also very difficult to fund. And so I think, as we go forward, if there are changes made to this budget, I would definitely want to prioritize keeping what we have rather than adding new things. But other than that, I think we're ready to turn it over to the council and see where we go. Thank you, everyone, for your hard work on this budget.
Thank you, Mayor, and I echo that as well to everybody. I'm sure we all do. So thank you so much for putting this together. I know last year we talked about revenues. It was something Sabrina mentioned. She went back to 2008 to look, where we were with revenues as far as kind of not having a shortfall at the end of the year. It's things like that where we've always been a conservative group, led by our finance director and everybody else here. But so I definitely want to start out with revenues. Would our council president like to start with the first question? Do you have anything or?
Sure.
Okay.
So under the revenues, and I guess I can direct you to, it's line number 43690. It's on the first page of the revenue tab. What that $410,000 is from the wheel tax. So the problem I have here is that entire amount of revenue, I don't know if this is time to put I don't know when we want to talk it, but the bottom line is we're spending it all. And the Mayor Smith had mentioned how a bunch of the staff members, myself and her, met for over a period of about 6 months or so to talk with the city funding discussion group to try to come up with a longer term solution. We were talking 6 to 10 years was the goal. And when we came in front of the council and presented this new revenue option, which again, $410,000, the intent was that this would be a longer term solution. At that time, we were looking at a decrement of about $187,000 for 2026. And we were going to put the remainder of that into equipment replacement fund, could earn some interest because we spent a lot of money out of that equipment replacement fund. You'll see that when we get to that tab, and it's time to start replenishing some of that. The issue here we have right now is these revenues are going to be completely spent this year if we don't do something different, which means next year, next summer, we're going to be in the same boat. How do we get more revenue for the city? Because now we can't afford 2027. That was not the intent of this proposal when it came before the full council. We were supposed to be saving some of this so that in 2027, 2028, 2029, we would not be having to seek further revenue sources from our citizens. So I want to definitely highlight that $410,000 on the revenues. And just to everyone, keep in mind as we go through this, we weren't supposed to spend all that. All right. And challenge is going to be our ability to, I guess, reduce funds is limited to discretionary spending. And there's not a lot of wiggle room in that. I mean, the non-discretionary stuff, you're going to see, salaries, wages, benefits, insurance, current contracts, things of that nature that we're already committed to. We can't touch that. So what can we touch? Well, it's not a lot, although we are looking at already what I would argue what's going to be taking up a huge amount of that $410,000 is a whole bunch of new hires. And that wasn't supposed to be part of the plan. So I just keep that in mind. That's the only piece on the revenues I want to bring up.
Thank you, Alder Knott. Alder Wolf, would you like to go next? Would you like to go next?
Yes, thank you. Building on Alder Knott's topic, at least for wheel tax, I sent our city administrator, I think earlier today or sometime in the last 24 hours, I forwarded an article that was in the La Crosse Tribune, and I'm just going to read the headline. GOP bill would require wheel taxes be approved by voters, not governing boards in Wisconsin. So don't know if anyone else had seen that, And the main gist of it, what I got was voters would need to reauthorize municipal and county will taxes during regularly scheduled elections at least every 2 years. That has given me pause and concern. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Wolf. Alder Benash, would you like to go next, or do you have anything?
Not at this time.
Okay, Alder Lowendorf?
I honestly, that's really frustrating to know that we've already burned through all of that, because that was also supposed to be a temporary solution to Band-Aid us for this upcoming year. So I know we've approved some things. Yeah, we definitely need to come up with something else. And especially alarming if it's going to be going forward, potentially a voter thing instead of us adding. Yeah, so. Otherwise, I really appreciate everything that the team has done as well. I really like the high level overview on each tab. That was really nice. Just if I obviously went through all of it, but kind of back, you reviewed it easily and what have you. So.
Thank you, Alder Lowendorf. And I do have a couple things I'd like to bring up. One item would be it's item 46210. This would be the Fire Protection Service. I just had a question on this. Just gonna wait for our city attorney to pull that up. Should be near the top. Yep. Okay, so I was just noticing 2025 activities at 215,000. Our budget was 390. I guess I'm just wondering, is this something that's backloaded? Go ahead, Sabrina.
Thank you. We actually just received the check in the mail today, but a lot of what goes into Fire Protection Service is our contract with the town of Onalaska. So, and we just received the check today. So we billed them in July and in October.
Okay, and then, so I thank you so much for the clarification. So then when we're looking at our 2026 numbers, it's 470,000. We're confident that that is the revenue coming in because of the agreement.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Sounds good. I just wanted to double check on that. And then one other thing I want to touch base on is item 48100. It's our interest income. No, we have always been conservative with this number. It's something that I'm looking at 2025, 694,000. Obviously, we can't control next year, but I was just curious what it went into the numbers with it being, about a third down on that, just out of curiosity. And obviously, I do understand the conservative approach, so I'm sure it's a lot of that, but just out of curiosity, I was wondering if we could look at that just a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I can say from my perspective, being in the department line, and then if Rick wants to add anything further, he most definitely can. So we have always budgeted conservatively for interest income. When I first came to the city of Onalaska in 2021, we did literally receive about $55,000 in interest that year. So there's been years where in the past, looking at history, where we did increase it. And then if you have a bad year in the market, then you have to find the remaining amount for the following year. Some of the things that I've put in place in my time here with Dana Investments is a lot of that money is set aside in bonds, but we do have other savings accounts within the city where we are earning interest. So I definitely feel confident in that we would receive the 293,000 for 2026. The main reason why we budget so conservatively there is if an expense comes up throughout the year, or other revenue lines where, is based on, the swimming pool or building permits or things like that. If we were to come under budget, that kind of is a safety net for us as well. So that's part of the reason why I stay conservative with that number. We did budget 290,000 for 2025. And as you can see, we have already exceeded that. That's kind of my reasoning. And I don't know if Rick, you want to add anything further?
No, those are, excuse me, basically the reasons why we put it at the number that it is. Obviously, some could argue that there is some room there to move up or down. But again, based on what Sabrina was saying too, you just never know what it's going to be the following year. I know there are projections out there as to what it will be for next year. And I think this is well within the lines of what those projections are.
Thank you so much for you both. And I know how important this is, obviously, for everything. We've used it for many different reasons. It's something possibly with this wheel tax, if we're spending all that money, that potentially some of that money can go back in. So, Alder Knott?
Yeah, very briefly, two other influencers on probably that decrement too, and you can confirm or deny. One would be the expectation for lower interest return next year because of the decrease of interest rates inside the nation. But the other one is that we actually, and again, I supported it, we needed a fire truck, but we decremented those funds substantially in this last year. So that's less money in the fund to earn interest too, whereas last year it had more. So.
That's great insight. Does anybody else have anything to add to that? City attorney or sorry, city administrator?
Nope, I just wanted to respond to a couple of the concerns that were relayed as well too. In regards to the work funding group that had met over the last or the first 6 months of the year, about every other week, we did have a lot of discussions, not only about fees, but also about any kind of services we had cut or pull back a little bit. We even talked about a referendum. So there were a lot of different things that were talked about. But also remember when we had
Stacy. Hi,
we-
how are you? Well, so I got all those.
Okay. So when we had our June 19th meeting, that's the meeting where we discussed a lot of these different items. If you recall, the conversation really evolved around establishing the foundation for that financial sustainability for the city. And at that point in time, it was talked about establishing the fees that have been established. But if you also remember, that wasn't the end of what we had agreed to do at that point in time. Part of the conversation today is going to be the funding of that $30,000 for the fire protection assessment fee. And while that may be a little bit hearing another fee, keep in mind, and I'm not going to tell you that I'm an expert on how this fee works, but generally speaking, so the fire department, if this fee were to go into place, the fire department's budget would be removed out of our levy. I'm going to be very simplistic here, not getting in the weeds. And then a fee would be established for all properties in the city of Onalaska, including tax exempt properties, that would then make up for what this fire department needs to operate its budget or operates department. So it is spread out over more entities than it is under the property taxes. So the goal with that is, again, I'm not going to promise one thing or the other, but you remove something from the levy and you implement a fee, there may be a net decrease for some, there may be a net increase for some. It really is going to all come down to what this consultant tells us we need to do. So I am a firm believer, and Chief Luddy can chime in as well too, that this is another key step to making sure that we are financially sound going forward. The other piece that we do have in our favor is not too many years down the road now, the parking ramp will no longer be something that we have to provide tax dollars to. And I believe we're providing 300,000 next year.
349,000, I believe.
Sure, yep, something along those lines. And I believe 27 is our last year, if I remember correctly. Is that when-
28.
28 is when it sunsets. So again, that's another thing down the road. But again, when I'm looking at the budget, I'm kind of looking at all of those things as we have coming up going down the road. So we do have some things that are in place in regards to future. So while we are using the fees that have been implemented, there are other avenues going forward. The other piece of it is that work group their work is not done. As we talked about at that June 19th meeting as well, that's something we're going to revisit every year. As the state changes the rules on one thing or the other, whether it's good or bad for municipalities, we have to see how that impacts the city and see what kind of pivoting, so to speak, that we have to make. And so those are things that we will take a look at. Once we get through this budget process and into the beginning of the year, we'll meet again, take a look at some of the things that are out there that we talked about before, see if anything more makes sense, doesn't make sense. Those are conversations that will continue on an annual basis as we establish that financial sustainability. And then the other piece on it is, and I'm glad you brought that up, Alder Wolf, the wheel tax or the vehicle municipal registration fee. There is a legislation out there. And a couple of us have reached out to the League of Wisconsin Municipalities to find out what they know about this. I don't know that it was on their radar when we first reached out to them, which was not too long ago. Our understanding is that the governor will not sign any bill that requires any kind of referendum to do a vehicle registration fee. And the league is monitoring it. They have registered in opposition of it, and they are lobbying against it. So the likelihood is unlikely. But again, I just wanted to respond to that. We were aware it was out there. It was still relatively new that we were looking into, and that's the information we've received so far. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions or comments, concerns on the revenue portion of this? I'm not seeing any now. So would we like to move on to, I guess, expenses and do the kind of the same thing where we come in the round table this, or is there any area you would like to start on this?
And I'm open to questions, comments, concerns that anybody has in regards to specific expenses. So we can certainly field any questions.
Is there anybody that has a specific thing they'd like to talk about right now?
Do we want to do that tab by tab, or do you want me to list all of mine like?
I mean, I guess it would,
You're talking about the overall sheets?
yeah, I mean, I guess I'm open to however we'd like to do this. I think City Administrator Niemeyer was kind of saying that we could go into specifics for each person instead of going line by line, or not line by line, sorry, page by page. If that's what's best, I mean, we could definitely do that. I guess I'm open to what you all think. Alder Wolf?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I guess I'm looking at maybe going by tab, but
Okay.
I mean, otherwise it might get overwhelming because we're each going to go, okay, these are my ones for all these tabs. And then it'll be Diane, I want all these tabs.
Okay,
Tab by tab.
okay,
Yeah.
that works for me. Are we good with that?
Yep, that's fine. Whatever the.
So we are going to start on the Common Council tab then?
Correct, yes.
So I have a concern. Obviously, this is one where I put in my recommendations first anyway, as the Common Council President, but there's one line item that we're still looking for a little bit of due out. I know Rick and I have talked extensively on it. And that is the subscriptions and dues. That's item 320 on your sheets. That's the 8974. And what that is for specifically is for the League of Municipalities. And I'm still trying to be convinced that we get $8,974 worth of value for that expenditure. So I don't know if you have more information you want to provide, or, I mean, it's, yeah.
Sure, and I was anticipating, so what I've done, I think I had mentioned, I had reached out to the league and talked with, or via email, talked with Jerry Duchesne. He is the executive director of the league. And I had indicated to him that there might be questions that come up in regards to the cost of the membership and the benefit that we're receiving. He did provide me with just a brief printout of the things. I'm going to hand out a copy here. I know it's again, something you have right now. But at the end of the day, from my perspective, the benefits from them is, they do a lot of lobbying at the state level. Now, I get it. They're going to lobby on behalf of municipalities, whether we're a member or not. But the information that we get from them on a monthly basis in regards to emails, for example, the Wheeler report, I believe that just came in today. Just haven't had a chance to forward it yet. Talks about a lot of the bills that are pending at the state of Wisconsin level and how they impact municipalities. If there's an opportunity that someone wants to voice their objection or get involved in whatever the case might be, they do offer that opportunity as well. They do the conferences, two in particular, the spring and fall conference. My perspective, those are the best two conferences that I go to, not only from my peers, but just the presentations that they have as well too, I think are great. So those are just two of the benefits. Again, the lobbying on behalf of the municipalities, while it's a great benefit to us, again, I get it, we would benefit from that regardless of the membership, but just it's the input that they reach out to those members and ask for.
So Mike, if I could continue then too.
Yes.
So, yeah, so the information they can provide, I guess, we have to decide if that is worth that much money worth of value. As far as the conferences, my understanding that you can still go, you just have to pay a higher fee per conference to attend.
Correct.
And I don't know that it's that substantially different to where we're getting our money back on this. So again,
Sure.
I'm not
I understand.
100% opposed to this. I'm still kind of undecided, to be honest.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yep. And that has been something that they have talked about over the last couple of years because they have, I think it's Dink, City of Madison, I believe, is one that had not too long ago ended their membership. So they're aware that there are concerns out there in regards to the membership costs. So that is something that they're aware of. It's just a matter of, having those conversations and where does it go from here. Jerry is retiring in August of next year, so there will be some new leadership for the organization. What does that mean for the organization in the future? Obviously, that remains to be seen.
I would just add that they also have a full service legal team that they allow to support municipalities. So if I have a question or I want to talk through an issue, they have 3 on-staff attorneys with municipal experience that they make available to all of the member municipalities. They offer legal opinions. There's an entire league done database that has all of the league issued legal opinions, all of the state issued legal opinions, as well as is just a significant amount of municipal data that they put together. We do pay a nominal fee on top of the budgeted amount, but we wouldn't have access to that otherwise. And so I think that has a lot of value as well.
How often do you find that you're reaching out for some legal opinion or legal advice from them?
I mean, probably a couple times a year. They also host weekly league attorney conference calls. So every Wednesday at 1 o'clock, all of the municipal attorneys in the state are welcome to jump on a call with league attorney staff to talk through issues that are happening around the state. And so I probably jump on that call on average of once a month.
I noticed okay, yeah, that's very helpful for me. But I noticed on this, Rick, it says one of their benefits is many league members also participate in league insurance. Do we participate in that?
We are not. I'll let Amanda touch that. She's in charge of the insurance.
We are not. We are a founding member of City Villages Mutual Insurance Company. And we have been generally happy with their service. They provide a lot of our training for free that the city takes part of. On the HR side, they'll help us run our safety committee. From a cost saving standpoint, we have looked at the league in the past and there is really not a lot of difference financially as far as what we would pay in premium, whether we switch from the league or CIVMIC. And as a founding member, we do have a dividend and ownership interest in CIVMIC, and we would lose that if we left. And so we haven't been persuaded to jump ship at this point.
You have anything else, Stephen, to add to that?
No.
Okay, Alder Wolf?
Thank you. I, for one, would, I realize I'm not a voting member, but I will be is that next week already?
Mhm.
Oh my gosh. But as far as input, I appreciate the page 2 at the top about the best training for local leaders, like our city administrator Niemeyer mentioned. He feels that that is the best training best training conferences that he could attend. I felt that also last year. I'm gonna go down to the next line, 2 line items later about seminars, conferences, and travel. I see that the travel, seminars, conferences, and travel has been reduced for 6 members of common council from 800 to 500. And I know that there were some on this council that didn't feel that maybe we needed to have that much money in there. So I'm a little bit dismayed that it's lowered again. When I have attended conferences, I think the one that I attended last fall was the best that I have attended to. I just think that when we have 6 electeds, I think we need to we need to put forth the best and the brightest of what we know, what we can learn. I'm just very disappointed that as long as I've been here, it just seems like council is an afterthought, quite frankly. And we've never been really encouraged to go to training, do that kind of stuff. I mean, there's on occasion, planning will go ahead and send something out to us that maybe do some type of for like Board of Zoning Appeals or maybe for plan commissioners also. But there's just what we have is really on the job training. And I just think that our citizens have elected us to do the job, a great job. And I just don't think that we are taking advantage of all the things that we could to do better. I've been told many times that we all serve differently. I agree with that, but I think we should be encouraging our peers to learn, to grow, to meet people across the state. But I will, next week, I will certainly be supporting the subscriptions and dues. So if I remember correctly, Amanda, correct me on this, but during COVID, they also were instrumental. I read every single email that comes out. I click on the majority of the links just to kind of be more aware of what's going on in our area. You can also see what other communities are doing. And I think that's very helpful to kind of get ideas or maybe what path we shouldn't go down. So that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Wolf. And also please let the record show that Alder Jurassic is here. Alder Jurassic, we are on the Common Council page in our book. You bet. Alder Benash, did you have anything you wanted to add to this?
Do not.
I guess I just have a quick question. I know we're talking about the training and the seminars. Under this league membership, I do see one of the line items is the best training for local professionals, elected leaders. I guess, is this something that we could take advantage of as part of this membership more often?
And I do try to forward when there are training opportunities or like the Wheeler report, which is about the status of laws at the state of Wisconsin. I do try and forward those on. And the reason I do that is so if any of you do want to take advantage of that opportunity, you're certainly welcome to do so. So
perfect. And then also I noticed the next two items down, the evolving resources, including grant finder. Grant writing is something that is important. Is this something that we use at the city often, out of curiosity?
I believe we've signed up for this in the past. That looks like maybe someone over there has some additional information on that.
I was just going to add, just as one example, League actually nominated me. I'm going to be on a state committee of Public Works city engineers that are going to select $40 million of the discretionary projects for the local road improvement program. And that's just one of those things where having those league relationships get you into those committees and things like that. Also like the state recycling committee, I sit on that. But those are things that you bring knowledge back that I get to share with and utilize here at the city on, we didn't have a project to put in this year, but in the next biennium, the next 2 years, now you have someone that's a expert at that. So hopefully we can have a better chance. But these are just small things. Each department uses the league in different ways, and we do use them for grant assistance and things like that when we have a question. But they're constantly pushing out emails and stuff. I get them on multiple frames, but that is one of the frames that I do get emails on a lot of occasions for road specific, streets, general fund type things. It's not so much the water and sewer side of things, but it is on especially at how our road system is funded. I get a lot of information from the League of Municipalities.
Thank you so much, Jared. And I guess looking at this and hearing this feedback, to me, it feels like something that I definitely would support. But just, I think it's helpful that the way you laid this out, really appreciate you bringing it up because it's important to draw it to attention. But that's all I have for this matter. Alder Lohendorf.
Yeah, I think I could get behind that. It sounds like it's something that's being used and it's beneficial to all of us, so.
Thank you. And Alder Jurassic, do you have anything to add on this?
No, sorry, I'm late. Sorry, I'm late. I just got off of work, so running a little bit behind today. No, I've contacted members of the staff and everything like that and talked to them about a lot of their areas, so I'll have very few comments today.
I'm good with what I heard. I'm not going to make a motion to remove it.
Okay. All right. In that case, let's move on to the Police and Fire Commission tab. And anyone like to start with anything on here? City Administrator Niemeyer.
And this doesn't have to do with this tab specifically, but it just reminded me as we're all sitting here too. I know in the past there have been times where people have had difficulty in hearing when someone's talking from a different microphone. If somebody is at any point in time, please let us know so we can either move around the room or do something until we have some kind of a new system in place. This is what we have. But it just reminded me because we talked to the company that we were talking to about the system this morning. And so I just want to remind, if you have trouble hearing at any point, just let us know.
Thank you. Alder Benash.
If I would, in conjunction with what the city administrator just said, I would ask if you could stand and get a little closer to the microphone and slow down your speech. It is a little difficult to hear.
All right. Do we have any alders that would like to speak on this Police and Fire Commission? Not seeing any. Let's move on to the city attorney page. City Attorney Amanda Jackson, would you like to say anything about this to start?
No.
Okay, thank you. Any alders have anything on this topic? Okay, not seeing any. We can move on to the city administrator page. Is there anything specific that stuck out here for anybody? All right, let's move on to the mayor page. I guess I'll open the same floor up to anybody that might have anything here. All right, not seeing any, let's.
I'm
oh,
going to.
Go ahead,
Yeah.
go ahead, Alder, not.
Seminars, conferences, and travel. I'm just looking historically. That has not been, we haven't gotten to $2,000 before. I don't know, if we're looking for some type of savings to maybe start replenishing the fund, I don't know, I have to ask the mayor if, maybe $500 less would suffice. It's just a question.
Yeah, I mean, I've never had really a problem with that. The thing is, just if I were to need to travel somewhere. Yeah, I mean, if we start doing that, that's fine. That's.
I mean, is that something we could mark down and potentially come back to later?
That's kind of where I'm thinking.
Okay.
Yeah. Right.
I'm fine if we mark that, but again, it looks like Alder Wolf has something to add.
Thank you, Chair. The only thing that I would add is, I said this last year and possibly the year before, the one nice thing that Mayor Smith does is that when council runs out of money, she's more than happy to go ahead and for like travel. She has picked up some of our attendance registration fees. I don't think there's been many, but I know she's been there. Not that we can depend on her always to do that or should expect her to, but she has been gracious enough to go ahead and pick up some fees in the past. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Wolf. Alder Benash?
Just inquiring about any funds that are not used, does this go into the surplus fund then?
Go ahead, Sabrina.
So it would just be excess revenues, which then at the end of the year, we would, or a surplus, at the end of the year, we would, I would come back to you and ask, like, do we want to move this into equipment replacement or where we want to move that? So yes, that's where it would go. Dollars that are unused, we're usually able to transfer into equipment replacement.
Doesn't the budget need to be balanced? And
Yeah.
so
Correct.
in this case, we would have to say where it's going to go if we're going to decrement it. And that,
Right.
Equipment replacement fund would be an option as an example.
Correct. If we had any additional revenues, my suggestion would be to move that into equipment replacement.
So sorry.
But we are balanced right now.
Thank you, Sabrina. Go ahead, Mayor.
First, we would need to balance within whatever particular budget, whether it was the mayor's budget or any other particular one, we'd need to balance within that one first. And then the overall budget before we think about the equipment replacement.
Mhm.
What is that called? The Gatsby law or something?
What'd you say?
Isn't there a law about that? The Gatsby law or something?
GAP and GASB, you have to have a balanced budget. You would have to, use reserves or have a balanced budget, but you have to have a balanced budget. And then any additional funds we can transfer over.
Thank you. I
Mhm.
do have that just noted down for if we need to come back to something like this. Alder Lowendorf, Alder Jurassic, anything? Okay. All right, let's move on to the finance tab, please. There was something that came to attention for me was the decrease of $12,000 that, on our cover page. I don't know if Sabrina want to touch on that.
Yeah, I definitely can. So what this is currently, well, I shouldn't say currently anymore, but prior to switching to BSNA, which is our new ERP system, we would charge consumers a fee when they would come to the register of 3%. and that went into miscellaneous income. And then the expense for people using their credit card, sometimes it would be under 3%, sometimes it would be more than 3%. The expense came out of my budget. But now with our new software, we are just charging the customer upfront. So the customer pays it, it goes straight to the company, except for water bills. Water bills, the city is still paying for the credit card fee. And we will have to do that until we would do a full rate case to where we could change our processes. So it did usually amount to around 12,000 a year. So that is why you see the decrease. The remaining items in my contractual services is mainly related to the armored car. So we have the armored car that comes twice a week to pick up our deposits. I'm trying to remember the other things that I put on my budget sheet for other contractual services. We have to pay for bond coverage, and then the tax bill mailing is usually a hefty bill. We do that nice sheet that's in color. We send that, and then my budget pays for the cost of mailing all the tax bills and printing all of the tax bills. So that's really what's in my other contractual services.
Great. Thank you so much for that insight. Alder Knott?
Yeah, not sounding like a broken record. I think I only got this a couple more times throughout this, but so this is under line 330, seminars, conferences, and travel. Just historically, finance has never spent more than 2.2K on seminars, conferences, and travel. They're requesting 3,000. I'm wondering if we might want to take a note of possibly at the end, when we're looking at this total at the end, of also decrementing that from 3,000 to 2,500, and whether or not Sabrina would have issues or concerns about that.
Go ahead, Sabrina.
Yeah, so the reason I do have it at 3,000 and didn't decrease that line item, this year we implemented a new ERP system. We are working through implementing a new timekeeping system, which affects everyone here at the city. I have not had time to go to any conferences this year. The majority of the accounting conferences are in the fall. The reason I kept it at 3,000 is because I'd like one, if not two, of between me and my staff to go to the BSNA annual conference, which usually is around $800. So that, and then just other conferences that may show up here in the state. I am a CPA, so I do like to continue on with CE credits to stay current in the profession. So that's the main reason why we haven't used very much of our budget for this year. If you do want to decrease it, I'll make it work.
Okay, so I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead, Mayor.
Yeah, I just want to say, like, when it comes to my budget for that, it's really not that big of a deal. The main reason I don't travel is because I do have another job, and it's difficult for me to do that. And I've just tried to block out keeping that in my budget for the future, because it's hard for us to make any changes over time to our budget. So if that goes away, and then in the future, my schedule is different, or you have a different mayor, maybe needs to want to travel more, they would have that there. But also, if I really did want to go somewhere and that my budget didn't permit it, I would probably still do that. That is entirely different than our staff members. Like, our staff, they're credentialed professionals, and they need this money to be able to go to conferences, to keep up their credentials so that they can maintain the high level of performance that we expect of them. So while cutting the mayor's area is totally not a problem, I'm not going to support cutting it for any of our staff unless we're in very dire straits. So I just want to say that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Alder Knott?
So just so everyone knows the background, I did go, this is one area I did look at across the board, and I met with pretty much all the directors and department heads except for one individual was not available at that time. But, and went through, and I'm 100% convinced that what our staff is attending is legitimate. So that wasn't a question here of whether or not what they're doing is a legitimate deal. And a lot of it does have to do with continuing education credits, not just with finance, but on a lot of the staff. What this question here is based off of historical usage, and that, again, the highest level so far has been 2.2K, and we're asking for 3. Now, if Sabrina thinks that this year she needs to have that, then so be it. But, yeah.
Thank you, Alder Knott.
Oh.
Alder Wolf?
Thank you, Chair. I do have a quick question. Of your 191 supporting document
I know what your question is.
is, okay, go
I
ahead.
found it. It always finds one. I was kind of hoping you didn't, and then I could have showed you at the end.
I'm not advocating.
Yeah.
To, but the
Um,
sheet, it
so-
shows 2,500, but.
It did.
Page-
Yeah. So last year, Rick, had mentioned, like giving some additional dollars to departments, that, in regards to seminars, conferences and whatnot. And I, originally had 2,500 in my line, and Rick had brought that up when he had meetings with every single department head and said, well, I gave you 3,000 for last year. You should use that. And I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to go any to this year. I did make it in the sheets, but I didn't make it in the backup sheet. I missed it. So, but that additional $500 makes it so 2 people in my department could go to a conference essentially. And then still have some dollars available if the GFOA conference had, enticing topics that were interested to me or any of my other staff. So.
And to follow up on that, again, I'm not advocating that we change it. I think I guess the way I look at this is personally, when you look at our budget, I think our budget reflects what we find is important. And I know after COVID, after everyone had to stay at home, I strongly advocated for department heads to, reintroduce those dollars again because, and now when there was talk possibly of cutting them, it was like, why are we doing that? They've been home for the last couple of years or whatever it was, and they need to get back out there again. So I personally will always advocate for seminars, conference, and travel, obviously within reason, but I've never seen personally anything that we've ever done that just was not necessary. I think I have to assume that I'm correct in this is that I don't think I've ever seen a department head ever or staff ever go to conference when it wasn't necessary, or they had an opportunity to, or hey, maybe they had a window of a couple of days because they're really, really busy. And a lot of times when you pull people off from their desk, they're coming home to a mountain of stuff. So that's not fun either. So I really strongly have always believed that if staff is going to go on travel, they're doing it because they feel it's necessary or it's a really great opportunity for them. And I'll always support that. The other thing that we have to remember too is, yeah, we may have like $3,000 here. The mayor had her dollar amount. At the end of the day, if it's not used, it's not like it goes away. I mean, we all know that, but just as a remark, it doesn't go away. It will end up using for good at come the end of the year. So I particularly would encourage the 3 voting members at this budget meeting to remember that these are just really good guesstimates based on past experience, and not try to do a race to the bottom, because that I think it can get really ugly. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Wolf. Alder Jurassic?
Thank you, Chair. The way I look at it, when I went through the budget and saw the changes that just about everybody made, is that almost every conference from one year to the next is going to raise their funds. So the margin that we've been putting in to increase is well within that range. So I can't see any cutting on any of these here. That went through just about all of them. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Alder Jurassic. Anybody else have anything to add to this? Not seeing any. Let's move on to the next tab, which will be our city clerk tab. Do we have anything on here they would like to bring up? Joanne, do you have anything you want to add? Okay. Let's move on to the elections tab. Anybody on here have anything they'd like to bring up? Not seeing any. Let's move on to our Human Resources tab, please. And on this page, I know we have our cover page that kind of talks to us about the staffing request, the position. So if there's any questions on that or anything else, Alder.
Yeah, I alluded to this when my first remarks on the revenues portion. Every year I've been on council, we have increased staffing to some degree or other. I don't think there's been an exception to that. I certainly don't recall it. And I just think that this year we need to stop. I'm not saying that the needs of staff aren't legitimate, that we have folks who do a lot of work and that it might be able to bring some efficiencies in to bring more people in. My argument is we don't have the money. And so I'm just thinking that it might be time for 1 year to just freeze our staffing levels at where they're at, not hiring, staffing. And this would be, I guess, the first one to talk on. And with that, we would be able to recuperate a substantial amount of the funds as well from that 410,000 that was supposed to last a few years and isn't going to if we end up, it certainly won't if we end up hiring every single person that is recommended inside this budget. That's the biggest increase that's soaking up a lot of that $410,000 what was supposed to last us for a few years. So my recommendation would be that we don't do the hiring as the bottom line. And I know that would affect several people there's several directorates that are asking for additional staff or additional hours. So.
Thank you, Alder. Anybody else have anything to add to this? City Administrator Niemeyer?
And I'll just add on there as well, and this is going to be just generally speaking to all the requests that have been made in regards to staffing. Obviously, working with staff on a day-to-day basis, we have lots of conversations regarding, workloads, who's able to take, their accrued time off, vacations, or even some sick days, quite frankly. And so in those conversations, I see on a day-to-day basis, and an argument could be made probably in every department that the need is there. We've had a lot of conversations over the last probably 2 years in regards to recruitment and retention. And when people are working hours of work and they don't have time to take vacation and have to request for their vacation to be carried over outside of what our policy allows, those are the things that for me as the administrator, I get really concerned about. Because then you start witnessing signs of burnout, and burnout can be a real significant thing because all of a sudden you start losing people because of that burnout. And then you spend time and more resources training new staff and bringing in new staff than you do trying to maintain the ones you have existing. So I don't take lightly the fact of adding or increasing or doing anything when it comes to positions. With some added fees this year, I felt that I could at least make a dent in it. I'm not saying that this is going to happen every year, but there were some areas that I was not able to assist with those maybe burnout areas or areas that need help pretty badly. These were some areas that I was able to do something for now, but I'm also, again, I could go around the city right now and I in my mind right now, I could name off a number of individuals who I know are exhibiting signs of burnout, and it's really due to the workloads. And so while I get I understand the issue in regards to the finance piece of it, again, remember, we have more pieces to put in place when it comes to our financial sustainability. So the reason that these were put into the budget was because we're witnessing those things on a day in and a day out basis.
Thank you.
One quick reply. So yeah, there are needs, there are wants, and then there are resources that can support them. I'm not arguing that these aren't legitimate needs. What I am arguing is I don't believe we have the resources for it, because what's going to happen is next year we will have to find more revenues. Well, because we're spending it all and things are going to go up. There'll be pay raises, and that brings up the next thing too, with the COLAs that come into effect. Every time we increase staff levels inside of the building, one of the unintended consequences is you have ever increasing downward stress on the future pay increases and benefits for the staff that we do have. because the resources are that much decremented.
Sure.
So it's, I don't know. I just, my gut is telling me, again, it's been like 7 years. I don't think that there's been a year that we have not hired more people or increased hours on some members of the staff or some directorates inside of the staff here, literally over 7 years. I don't think we have never not done it. And I just think it is time that we need to stop and take a look at what's going on here and get our financial house in order before we move forward. So.
Public Works Director Jared Holter had something.
I just wanted to also state a couple of the positions that are in here are utility based. So
That's
just
different.
to clarify, they're not going to be a general fund based. So that's not part of the, and we'll get to those positions and I can explain them. But one of the positions is a maintenance worker that we're funding half general fund. And if you look at the materials that were in the budgeted materials, part of the reason we put that in there is because our street department has not had any additional staff it actually went down in staff in the last 20 years. Part of that's because of the way we do things. Part of that's because of the equipment we have. Very fortunate in that, but part of it was because we thought that was a direct, the vehicle registration fee. This will be a purpose for those funds that will directly benefit what you're putting that fee out there for. So we're trying to put, and I understand the concept and I'm not disagreeing with the concept. They're just trying to explain where I come up with that rationale behind it. So, and obviously any position, whether it's a utility-based fee or general fund or whatever, it does have an impact, but I just want to make sure we understand that that fee does not totally, there's a lot of positions in here that the couple of the bigger dollar amounts are utility based, not general fund based.
Yeah, no, I was going to bring that up when we got to those other notes. You've got one in that is, when we get to it, that is entirely funded through other sources, if you will, and one that is 50% funded, and those would be looked at a little differently. Yeah, I agree with you. So.
All right, thank you. Alder Lohendorf.
Excuse me. I guess from my standpoint, I think we kind of knew when we implemented the fees that we weren't going to be able to save them long term. Like we knew it was supposed to be a short term fee, but we already were running almost a $400,000 deficit when we approved it.
No, it was
Were we
187.
not?
187.
I
At
was
that
under
time.
the impression at that time that it was a lot higher and that's why we were going after so much. But regardless, from my perspective, I've been with companies that, regardless of the hiring and the stress levels and stuff, when we were in a financial crisis, we weren't getting raises, let alone hiring new people. So I guess I'm really torn on this because I completely understand the staff's position. It's really hard to take time off when you don't have somebody else there, but it also is, it's getting blood from a turnip, right? If the money is not there, it's just not there. So I think if possible, I don't know if we can table that one, but I think it's maybe a bigger conversation that we have, and maybe we bring on a couple of newer part-time positions and really restrict it down to, who really, really needs it the most and try to go that way. That said, also though, part-time is a lot less expensive on the city and a lot easier, I think, to can't think of the word I'm looking for. Eliminate as a position down the road too, I think. So
That would be a concern of mine, is if we continue to keep hiring, we will get to a situation where our funding mandates that we now have to start removing people from the staff. And I think that's coming up in just a few years if we continue down this road. I just don't see it being sustainable is my problem. The other thing is there is also a medium ground, if you will, like for instance, in this case, the human resources are asking for this individual to go from a 16-hour work week to a 30-hour work week. Maybe we go in the middle and go to 20. I don't know if that would, well, it doesn't do any good if we do that. I don't know. I'd have to ask Amy, of course, on that. But I mean, there are options in between too. But I really, really believe in my heart that we are not, I brought up earlier that we're being fiscally conservative. I don't think we are right now. I think we've kind of tipped, and it concerns me that we're spending all of that money. Because again, that was not the recommendation that came forward. That wasn't the intent that came forward. And that was supposed to last us at least for a couple of years. So.
Alder Benash.
Yeah, about the positions funded, I noticed that maintenance worker, the engineer, and the event specialist, a lot of that money will come out of utilities or the tourism budget.
Mhm.
The other question I have about that is, it was mentioned about health insurance. I think does the utilities budget, would the part-time employees be eligible then for health benefits? So they're not, so that's not considered in any future. And the other thing, since we're talking about positions being funded, I noticed that the positions for the fire department, there were 6 of them that have been axed. And then, excuse me, there were 3 more that have not been funded. If you continue on the route that Alder Knott is saying, are you ever going to fund these positions? Next year, quite a bit of that money is going to be spent for road construction. If you look at it, I think 1.7 million, is that about what we're looking at? Something like that?
Different budget line.
But the thing is, if we're talking about budgets and we're talking about funding positions, when are you going to find the positions that are essential services, police and fire? And I was hopeful that perhaps today in listening to conversation that we might find some money either in the surplus budget or the interest income to at least accommodate several positions in the fire department. But after listening to what's going on, doesn't sound like that's going to happen. And if it's not going to happen this year, and we're already talking about issues being next year, you talk about burnout. If you've looked at the fire department, what they did for having a consultant here, you can already see what's going on. So you've really got to consider it. I mean, these positions are necessary. Just talk to anybody in the department heads. But essential services, fire and police, if you're talking about burnout, it's there. So if you're not going to do it this year, you really better consider it next year. And you're going to have to start figuring it in the budget.
Thank you, Alder Benash. If anybody else before Alder Knott, I guess I just wanted to add something quick. I know this was something last year that came up. This was something that we got the cover letter when we started. It was on there. We weren't anticipating it as a council. And we basically decided that this position was something that we did want to provide. We wanted this position to be here. We wanted that support. So we did make changes and we, added some revenues that were controversial sometimes. Obviously, everything has worked out well this year with the budget. But it is concerning to think about next year where, what is it going to look like? But I do want to point that out that this was one of those positions last year that we really did fight to keep. And obviously we kept it at that part-time role, but just something I just wanted to point out to the council and everybody else here. Alder Knott?
My biggest concern is process here. And what I perceive is that if we go forward with all of these that are being requested right now, what we're doing is we're saying we're going to meet needs without knowing how we're going to pay for them. And I find that problematic. We need to be identifying long-term resources, which is why surplus funds won't do it. Once those are depleted, they're gone. And we don't get the interest off them either, which means now we have to make up for that in the budget. All right. Personnel hiring should be based off of revenues, not savings, because revenues replenish themselves, savings don't if you deplete them. All right. So the proper process for this is first identifying resources on how we're going to pay for all these people, not only just in 2026, but in 27, 28, and 29. And if we aren't going to do that, and we're just going to hope that all this money suddenly falls from the sky, I think it's just a matter of time before we end up having to fire people because we're out of money. So it's, I'm not comfortable with the process we're doing right now. We need to identify these funds first, and they need to be replenishing funds and not savings.
Thank you, Alder Knott. City Attorney Amanda Jackson?
I just have a procedural reminder that in order to make changes to the budget, they either have to be done tonight, which would be via Alder Loendorf, Alder Benash, and Alder Not and Alder Milky, or alternatively, we wait till Monday night, and then it would be made by the full council. So just a friendly reminder
Thank you.
that if we want changes made, we have to do it by motion.
Yep, and real quick, for the motions, I guess we kind of, I'm not sure, I guess procedurally, but would it make sense to go through everything and then be looking at this at the end? Or should we be looking at motions as we go through it? I guess I'm out of curiosity.
That is your choice, whichever you find organizationally to be easier. If you want to make motions as you go, or if you want to go to the very end to a certain degree, then you're sort of starting over, right? And almost going through the process twice. But then, you know, you may make a motion, then decide later you want
Yeah.
to do something different. So that's
Okay.
your call.
I guess I kind of would like to get the information, and then if we, you know, that's what'll help us come up with a better decision at the end. So, Chief Fleddy?
Yeah, just like to take this opportunity just to say that, to kind of piggyback off of Alder Benash's comment about the 3 firefighters that were in the budget.
I think that we should address that under fire. I think we're procedurally getting off of HR at this point, and so you will have your budget time.
All right, we'll get you up here for that portion. Anything else we want to talk about right now on the HR portion? Alder Wolf?
Thank you, Chair. The one thing that I would just add is that every year we do this a little differently, but in past years, it's on occasion, if we're kind of stuck on something. And I have a feeling maybe this is, I'm just make a suggestion, then you can decide how you want to do it then. As we come across things, and it may end up being where we talk about this new position as we go on. And then maybe rather than possibly make any motions, then maybe write them down, then we're going to revisit them at the end. So now we've talked through the whole budget. We have a better idea where we're at.
Yeah.
And I think it'll be better for you, best for as chair. It's just a lot easier, I think, because it's difficult to be going back and forth and back and forth. And at least that's what I would suggest. It's your choice though.
Mayor Kim?
I have another question, probably for Sabrina. Just considering, I'm going to write this down as something that maybe we're coming back to later. So this is a staffing request to move someone from the position from 16 to 30 hours per week in 2026. What was the total budgetary impact of that?
So
The difference? Yeah,
Yeah.
because it's hard to just,
Yep. So last year, the council approved for an LTE position. So in the department line, it's not in there because it was an LTE position. So the cost for the 30 hours is approximately $58,814. If it were to be 16, that was right around $20,000, $19,069.
Thank you, Sabrina.
And that's because when you work 30 hours, you do have access to take our health insurance
Thank you.
at a higher premium than a full-time employee, though. It's at 50%. So you would have to pay, the employee would have to pay 50% of the premium instead of the 80%.
so the city would be paying 50% of the health premium.
Correct.
And is that included in the 58,000?
It is.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Alder Wolf?
Thank you. So as a follow-up, Sabrina, that is assuming that they are going to take insurance, because if they don't, but we don't know that, right?
Right. So anytime we have a vacant position or we're adding a new position, I always budget for health insurance because we don't know.
Right. And secondly, on the human resources tab, the sheets, again, the 191 pages supporting, I'm going to call it supporting documentation for lack of a better whatever. It's the page that was personnel justification, non-union staff 2026. Is that the HR administrative assistant?
Correct.
Got it. Thank you so much.
Anybody else?
Ask a question of Amy. So would a lesser amount make a difference, like going from 16 to 20, say, or 16 to 24? I mean, all these things would be in potential play.
Correct. I mean, any bit of help is always appreciated, so.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Before you sit down,
Go ahead, Alder Wolf.
thank you. I just didn't want you to have to make that walk again. So I know you and I had talked about the possibility of hours and such, and I know we had a fight for the 16 hours last year, and it was a fight. Could you share with me, what are you looking at this person doing, possibly what is not getting done, or the issues, like, because I know we talked also about like insurance rates and such, and what this person could be doing. Thank you.
This person, I mean, does help support myself and Joanne because we are a department of two. And so with that additional support, those things that tie us up in terms of filing, copying, scanning, data entry, those type of typical administrative things. I mean, without that support, you're paying somebody at a director or generalist wage to do those things. And so those type of things, our HR assistant has been very savvy in reports and helping us with our new systems and navigating those in terms of all that's required for compliance and things along those lines. And so it's been a great resource for us. Again, that takes away from, paying somebody at the director or the generalist level for some of those reoccurring things that we do on a daily basis.
And thank you. And as a follow-up to that, I know it's also under the staffing sheet, kind of an explanation about middle way through. This position will primarily be working on human resources matters. However, this position was also increased to assist the city administrator with various administrative tasks. So either, yeah, it's your turn soon, Rick. So if HR Amy could maybe add to that, and if not, but I would still like to hear from our city administrator, so you two can decide whatever you want to.
Yeah, I mean, being that the HR assistant also, we share a suite obviously with our administrator. I mean, again, we have people that come into the window, there's scheduling, there's questions, there's directing, there's things along those lines would help support that traffic, but I'm sure Rick can speak more to that.
And thank you for reminding me of that. I had completely forgotten about that piece of it too. Part of it was also to assist me to some extent as well. So right now, Rebecca she registers me for conferences and she will process any purchase orders if I have purchased anything, which is very helpful. What I don't necessarily feel comfortable with, because she's a paralegal, is if I need to schedule a meeting, asking this person to reach out to the individual, schedule a meeting. If I need to, and again, it's more of the administrative side of things where this role was also going to help me do those things. And part of it goes back to, you pay me well, and some of these more administrative tasks, which I don't have a problem doing, does it make more sense to have somebody at the administrative level do some of these types of things? So it was going to be a combination of dual, helping primarily with HR, but then also assisting me with some of those other tasks. Also, that would free me up then to some extent to work on some of the other things that I have to do on a day-to-day basis, whatever that happens to be, whatever my schedule looks like. So that was also going to be the other part of it. So my apologies, I had completely forgotten to mention that part.
And thank you. And lastly, I just want to remind those for those who were here and those who weren't, and this is not, just to make sure, this is not any judgment or anything on the current position and or the person who's serving in this role. But when we originally went ahead and it was a new positions, maybe sometime after 2018, that's all I can remember to now, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, when we initially put out a job description for a paralegal. That was originally supposed to be half paralegal, half assisting the admin department. So I know that role has changed. I think for the good. I think there's a lot of wonderful work that person who is, just for FYI, the name is Rebecca. She's fabulous at what she does, and she's also picked up a lot of new roles, like just with all it just seems that the list goes on what she has done, and she does a fantastic job. But do you know that there was a plan, I think maybe 2 different postings for half of that position to be. So that's been lost in all that. So we did approve it at one time. So that's all I have. And thank you both. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Anything else? All right, let's move on to the assessor tab, please. Obviously, this is near and dear to everyone's heart with what we just went through. And I was happy with everything. Seems like staff was pretty happy with how everything went, but does anyone have anything they'd like to bring up on this page? Sabrina?
Thanks. I do prepare this budget. I will say that we were a little apprehensive to stay with Accurate, but they've done a really good job this year. I think we've been very happy with the service that we've received, and we're really happy that we decided to stay with them.
Thank you, Sabrina. Right, not seeing anything else. Let's move on to the IT page. Does anyone have anything they'd like to talk about on this page? Right, not seeing. Let's move on to City Hall. Anything on here? All right, let's move on to our police. Aldernat?
Yeah, again, don't question the need at all, Chief. I'm gonna have kind of the same question I would have for, well, it goes 16 to 20. Yeah, I just don't see we have the resources long-term to pay for this. This just still comes up, have the problem with it. I see you had one other one you wanted that is not in the proposed budget as it is. I feel terrible being the bad guy on this all the way through. I really do. My gut is hurting, but we need to identify long-term resources before we start hiring people. That's, or in this case, increasing hours. That's just the way I see it. We're at such risk if we don't do that.
Anybody else have anything on this one?
I do have some questions as well. Let's see. So Chief, line 382, I'm just curious. So in the past, your end of year activity pretty much was taking care of your allotment to include, you're keeping your budget line here the same at 17,500, which was last year. And then last year you spent 17,161.52 to get the new uniforms and safety attire. Not questioning at all the need for safety equipment or uniforms. I'm just curious why at year to date, we're at only 8372.85. So it's less than half.
Yes, let me pull up our current budget. I don't think that's the latest up-to-date numbers, to be honest with you. I can tell you.
Again, make it clear, I'm not questioning the need for uniforms and safety equipment. I'm just curious why it's just so much lower this year.
Sure, I'm showing a balance just above $6,000 in that category.
So about 2K more than what, oh no, it'd be more than that. About 3K more than what is listed. Okay.
Yeah, so it's hard to say. I mean, we have about 2 months left. I'm certain that we would have additional uniforms, not probably $6,000 worth of uniforms left in these last 2 months. I don't know if there's any other additional outstanding items that you can think of, Tim, that are coming. Winter orders, in case any of you couldn't hear him, winter orders that are coming in for officers.
Okay, so, all right, so it's just an anomaly on here. I mean, bottom line is you're pretty much going to spend that out, right?
Yeah, I would say we're going to be pretty close.
Okay, all right.
To it, yes.
All right. That was it for me.
Alder Londorf?
Actually have two questions. Same question, but the next line item on 390 on ammunition. Actually, it looks like we, as of the print of the budget, it was about half of what the total budget was.
Yeah, so ammunition is a really tricky one because we can't control when it comes in, when we order from our vendor. Like literally just probably 2 weeks ago received a partial order from an order I ordered in February of 2024. And so then I ended up using 2025 money for that. And I'm being told some of the ammunition I ordered this year is coming in next year. So I'll end up using 2026 money for that. So it's just a real hit and miss when the ammunition factory produces our ammo and we get it. So I have almost 100% of that money, I don't want to say spent, but allocated in orders. And so we might get it yet this year or some next year, obviously, but I can't predict.
And then back a page, 121 on overtime. It looks like in 2025, the budget was 65. And then we're doubling, almost doubling it for 2026. It looks like 2026 will better match what our actual activity was for this year. Just wondering if we're thinking, knowing that we still have a full quarter left, if we're going to end this year at about what next year's budget is supposed to be at, or and just making sure, I guess, since this year we doubled it, that next year is not going to be another, we're not going to come in significantly over again.
Yeah, and I'll let Sabrina chime in here as well, but I will just, my 2 cents, this category has been under budgeted for 10 plus years. It actually used to be budgeted, I think, over $100,000. And sometime before my time, it was decreased quite a bit. And then we have been running over every single year. And so this year, between Sabrina and Rick, they brought it up to levels that it really should be at.
Sure. And my question, I think, is less that, I expect that you probably are going to have overtime. It's just kind of the nature of the beast, right? But more of, I don't want us to be caught, later on in the year, finding out that we had a lot more overtime than we expected, knowing that this year we were double what we had budgeted initially.
Sabrina, go ahead.
Thanks. So overtime is something that we definitely took a lot of time looking at, which mainly because we are increasing some revenue lines, and really by doing that, that kind of decreases our buffer at the end of the year, right? So I wanted to make sure we increased some of these overtime lines. In the past, we've never been able to move on the overtime lines just because we just don't have the room within our budget, unless we were to increase revenues to substantiate that. I originally had it at 150,000, but then to get the department line to budget, I brought it down to 120. I think 2024 was a little bit of an anomaly. We had a lot of turnover in 2023 and early of 2024. I felt pretty comfortable at the 120,000. We did move it down a little further to 90,000, which is still better than what we budgeted for 2025. But this, again, is a number that is hard to fully estimate. But based on prior history, I would hope that we would be somewhere between that 90 and 120 for 2026. And the other thing, if I can, wanted to mention, so in the year-to-date activity, we did have that software implementation in September. So these numbers are of September 17th for the year-to-date activity, because I didn't want to throw you all for a major loop and give you our new budget sheets from our new software. So that's why earlier when I handed out the budget books, I mentioned that this is the last year the budget's going to look like this. In the future, departments are going to be able to put their budget right into the software instead of sending me an Excel file and me entering it and me kind of managing the background. I'll still manage it. I'll be able to lock them out so they can't make changes. But that's part of the reason why some of these year-to-date activities will be slightly different. So just a heads up on that. It's missing about a month of history.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor?
Sabrina, can you also, looking at those police staffing positions, the admin with the 16 LTE going to 20, well, I guess at 16 as an LTE and then 20 and the record specialist, whether it's at 16 or 20, what those values are, so we can consider those later.
Yep, so it was an increase of $7,018.67 for the record specialist additional hours. And that's approximately the same for the permanent part-time to go from 16 to 20 hours. But again, the department line didn't have the permanent part-time admin. It did have the record specialist because that was approved as a part-time position, but not as a, the admin position was an LTE. So the department line wouldn't include that. But the total cost of that is $27,081.18.
Thank you.
Alder Jurassic?
Thank you, Chair. Chief, the difference between last year level of personnel and this year has increased, correct?
It has, correct.
Okay, so that would mean there's probably less of a possibility of overtime being used.
Correct. We're looking at a significant decrease in overtime this year compared to last year, yes.
Thank you, Chief.
Alder Not.
Yeah, so want to follow up on something Kathy had brought up. So I was under the assumption, looking at that ammunition line, I just assumed you probably had a qualification coming up late this quarter still. Obviously, it doesn't sound like that's the case. It's actually a backlog of ammunition is what's causing that decrement in expenditures. Do you have, are you having any challenges with keeping enough ammunition on hand for training?
No, excuse me, no. I have planned ahead properly, so we do have enough stock. But that's why I try to keep up with it every year, knowing this has been a problem for about the last 5 years that has taken upwards of a year to 2 years to get ammunition.
Are you limited on vendors you can use?
Well, with state contracts, yes,
Oh,
or state pricing.
okay. I mean, that's amazing. I mean, I can go to a dozen stores within a 20-mile radius right now and buy you thousands of rounds. I know that you're limited on the type of ammunition you can use too, but it's just shocking to me that you would have that much of a backlog in law enforcement requesting ammunition. That is astounding to me. Not your fault. I know that. So, okay. Huh. All right. Thank you.
Anything else on police topic? All right, we'll move on to fire. Alder Not, start us out.
Yeah, just one again, and it's pretty much the same comment I had with police as well. So Chief, again, in previous years, you've spent your uniforms and safety attire, I mean, and reasonably so. Again, I'm not questioning the need for that. But so far this year, you're just under half again on your expenditures, which is through September 17th, I guess that is what I heard. So is there, like, do you have stuff on order or?
Yes, that actually moved up quite a bit. If you remember last year, we needed to order Class A's. So we placed that order sometime between when your sheets came out and now. So
Okay, all right.
those are coming in, just so you know. We were able to get 9 out of 10. But for 2026, then we're going to lower our uniforms back down to where it was. So.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Chief, do you want to speak?
I do, and I apologize for speaking out of turn last time. This just had to do with city administrator. He started out by talking about the fire protection assessment fee. Alder Branash talked about funding 3 firefighters this year, and Alder Not, you talked about revenues. I guess I just wanted to reiterate why it's so important that we hire a consultant to look at this fire protection assessment fee. If we can't afford to do it, or it's not the appetite of council to fund 3 firefighters for 26, it's that much more important to look at this fire protection assessment fee moving forward, because that is a solution for our department to meet, or at least start to meet, the goals of our study that we did. So just wanted to reiterate that. Again, second fire station, really not on the table until we have the ability to staff it. So that's just another reason why we need to look at that. So just wanted to reiterate that.
Thank you, Chief. All right, we can move on to inspection. Do we have anybody that would like to speak on anything here? Not seeing any, we can move on to street. Oh, sorry, engineering. Getting ahead of myself. Aldernat.
Yeah, so this is an exception to the rule of everything I've been harping on here with the hiring. On this particular case, the recommendation for a new engineer position, as Jared pointed out, and he has here on his cover sheet, is that would be paid for not from the general fund, but half from stormwater, 1/4 from water utility budget, and 1/4 for sanitary sewer budget. So unless, I mean, I don't have an issue with this hire based upon that. So this will be kind of an exception to everything else I've been seeing. And this is one where it's kind of an odd, and we have to find the money, is under seminars, conference, and travel. Jared, you're asking for less than what you've historically used. So I'm almost thinking you need like 300 more bucks based upon historical usage of conferences.
Jared.
Yep, go ahead, Jared. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. We just, we can look between operating supplies and copy paper and usage. I mean, I think the $1,000 that we have is adequate. Our conferences go between various entities. You know, we're not going to a conference that's just engineering. We're at a water conference or a storm sewer conference, so we charge between departments. So I think if we've seen anything, I think we can live with what we have there.
Okay.
It's kind of the opposite of everyone at the end of the year. Also, you know, we're a little bit under in one, we're a little bit over in one, so we make sure it all works at the end of the year.
Okay.
I would also add for the engineering position that our current engineering aid position is open. That was a part-time position that we did not, if this position stays in the budget, the engineer position, we are not going to backfill that.
Oh.
That's 30,000 in savings. And we also are hoping to save $30,000 in contractual services that we currently hire out for our MS4 permit as part of the stormwater utilities. So over half of the position will be saving. It'll still be more of a position, but part of it will be funded with areas that we're already spending.
Thank you for that information. Any other questions? Not seeing any, let's move on to street. Aldernat.
This one, again, I have a concern, and it's that 50% from the general fund. I see that 50% is from stormwater utility, but again, you know, if we go through with all of these hires and increased hours, next year we won't have the money to keep them. So I do have a difficulty with that one. I wish I didn't. I mean, I hate being the bearer of the bad news and the bad guy, and that doesn't mean it's not going to go forward that way anyway. But my own view is, until we can identify long-term where these how our revenues are going to pay for this, I don't know that I can support it. And I'm not questioning the need. I'm not questioning the need for 3 more firefighters. I really wish we could do that. I understand that's an entire another shift on an engine, I think. So, yeah, I mean, I'd love to have it, but we got to identify resources first instead of hiring and then figuring out how we're going to pay for it. So, yeah.
Thank you, Aldernat.
Yeah, so on this one, year-to-date activity on the seminars, conferences, and travel, line 330 again, I see an expenditure of $90. In the past years, you've definitely gone to the training. I know you got credentialing that comes with this too. So, so in the past, I know that we've had no problem expending these. Is there a plan? Is it just that training or conference is late in the year?
Yeah, part of this is usually we have chainsaw training come November, December. That's a couple $1,000. So we do a lot of our training, either, we try and usually schedule it for November, December, because we're typically lighter in the snow removal versus January, February, and we're doing summer activities, and we just can't schedule time during the summer with the staffing levels, so we try and find a time, and it's usually the fall.
Okay, that's all I have.
Thank you, Aldernaut. And Jared? Anything else from the council? All right, sorry, go ahead, Sabrina.
Do you want the dollar figure for this position?
Yes, please.
Okay, well, it's about 47,000. 47,000. That includes the position and benefits. Again, since it's a vacant position, we do budget for full-time, a family health insurance, because we just don't know.
Thank you.
That's what would come from the general fund.
Correct.
Okay.
All right, move on to street signs.
I do have a question. Let's see.
Jared,
Okay. I'm sorry.
I'll just ask a quick question. Jared, I saw something in here about street signs updating every 20 years or the 20-year plan. Is that something that was for the street sign?
Yeah, it's an equipment replacement. We have a 10-year plan to replace all the street name signs within the city, so we're budgeting $7,500 in this equipment budget to do that.
Thank you. Go ahead, Aldernaut.
Yeah, so similar question as some before. On your 2025 budget versus year-to-date activity, our expenditures are well below the budget, which is unusual compared to previous years. Is there orders that are coming in later or?
Yeah, the street sign maintenance count for 11,000, that one actually, we try to wait. It's actually currently at about, I think I just actually looked at this with our operations director today. We're at about 5,800, I think, right now. So there's about 6,000 left to spend, but we will spend that out at the end of the year. So typically, once again, we see what our needs are during the year, what gets hit, what gets damaged, and then try and refill inventory at the end of the year.
Okay.
That's one of the major ones anyway.
Yeah, historically, it seems like it kind of maps out that way as well.
Yeah, I mean, we just had the street signal maintenance repair. We're actually going to be over budget in that this year, but we move monies around. We just had the traffic signals gone through, and we had that was a $1,900 bill. It just went through purchase orders today. So there's nothing we do with traffic signals or street lighting that's cheap. In reality, we had the one street light hit as an insurance claim, but it got hit in front of the laundromat on the highway. It was $12,000 to have that pole replaced. So there's nothing that we do that in these accounts that there's no such thing as going to Home Depot and getting a $100 part.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right, let's move on to streetlights.
Same question from me. Year-to-date activity on versus the budget on 2025.
Yeah, actually, if you look at 2025, we're way over in those accounts, but they're going to get, when these are printed out, we had that, one of them was the $11,000 hit that was going to get reimbursed back into the account from the insurance money. So some of these accounts vary widely based upon when you would print out the data.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, we can move on to animal control.
This is a contractual obligation, and Sabrina can jump in as well. As some of you may remember, this is the first time that we have budgeted out and actually extended this to not be a one-year contract, so we are already obligated for the amount in this budget.
Correct. I believe the term is 3 years. So we budgeted a small increase each year. I prepare this budget. This is the only increase is related to the contract.
Thank you. All right. We can move on to library. Okay, let's move on to parks. We did library. All right, I'm not seeing anything here for parks. Let's move on to recreation. Dan Wick for the second camp next year.
Yes.
Pretty exciting for everybody to be able to offer that. I guess,
Yes.
anything you want to share with on that?
Yeah, I mean, we're just, we are going to go with 2 sites. We will have one site at the Omni. We'll have one site at the Dash Center. So we are working through those details right now to, offer that to our community and there's definitely a need out there.
Absolutely. Thank you. Any questions on this one?
Just, I'm wondering, are we going to have to make some plans, see how it pans out, but with the closing of the north side smaller library from La Crosse, that might very well be driving additional traffic to us. I don't know. I don't know what the impact will be, and that just happened, so there's no way you had that into the 2026 budget, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're confident where we're at, that what we can provide and what we can do.
And the staffing for it will be paid for, so, which is great as well. Anything else? All right, let's move on to the Aquatic Center. All right, we can move on to planning and zoning. Okay, let's move on to park fund. Okay, we can move on to special projects and donations. I guess I just had a question on the room tax. This is something that obviously will change as we go on. I know our year-to-date's less than the budget, but pretty confident that we'll be getting to that point, correct? Okay, thank you, Sabrina. Any other questions on this one? All right. Let's move on to refuse and recycling. Go ahead, Sabrina.
Yeah, I guess I would just note, we've made it through the general fund. So the other funds that are levy related, I'll just talk about them as we go through the rest of the binder. So one of them is refuse and recycling, which you're looking at here now. What I can say is I know our contract is up in 2026, correct? Last year is our last year of the contract.
I would, 2020, it's due December 31st of 27. So in 26, our goal is to have staff work on starting the contract RFP process in spring of 26, finalizing it and having it out by the summer of 26 so we can finalize a contractor by the fall or late fall of 26 to give that contractor, if we would change contractors, it would take a year for them to order equipment just like you heard with ammunition, ordering any kind of a large vehicle, whether it's a street sweeper, dump truck, or garbage truck, is a year process. So we will be going through that. So one thing I would point out for, and you are a couple years away here, will be in the 2027 or 2028 budget when those come through, you're going to see an increase probably in the costs, especially if we amortize in new carts. So it'll be decisions, they'll be on the Board of Public Works in the next year. We'll be going through decisions that won't have impacts directly in that short term, but they'll have long-term impacts because this is typically, we've bid this out previously as a 7-year contract because you need to, with that upfront cost, you need to have a long-term contract for the contractor to give you a good price. So.
Thank you, Jared. Sabrina?
And then if I could also just add, the other kind of revenue sources in this fund is we apply for a grant every year. I prepare it, Jared reviews it. We send that off to the state and we've been lucky to receive that. So that's what the state aid recycling is. Then our yard waste stickers. So we're not raising the prices for that. That will stay at the $30. We did raise the price 2 years ago, I believe. And then the miscellaneous income line, what that is a refuse and recycling fee that is put onto the water bills quarterly for our consumers. We do only increase that by our increased recycling cost.
Thank you, Sabrina.
Um,
Any other questions? Alder Wolf?
Thank you, Chair. Jared, so we went via single stream recycling 2011, was it? 2012?
Yeah, we're going to be 28 will be 2 14-year term or 2 7-year terms. Plus we had a 5 before that. So 19 years. So yeah, 2010 about.
Thank you.
Amanda?
I was just gonna put it out there that the pizza is here and hot, so if you wanted to stop between this budget and the next budget, or shortly.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. Do we need a motion for that? No. Okay. Do we have anything else for business on this one we'd like to talk about? All right, not seeing any, let's take a short break. Do we want to put a certain time on it?
You want to recess until 5:15? That gives everybody about 20, little over 20 minutes.
Seems fair. All right, let's recess till 15 after. Thank you.
Usually we eat during this. I don't know if they've ordered.
Oh, why is it?
You know, I've been looking at it too. I'm like, oh my God.
What?
Why is this such a long break?
Oh, that's why I walked through the door. I looked at the clock over there. And
Oh, okay, got it.
I'm not that late.
Yeah, it's one.
All right, we are back and we left off with the refuse and so we're moving on to shared ride. Sabrina?
Thank you. So I said I would comment on each of them that involve the levies. So this one does as well. So the property tax dollar figure, that's related to the city's costs of running the share ride. A large portion of this is funded through federal and state aids. As you can see, that's listed here on this page as well. And then Holman and West Salem pay a portion of the cost for our share ride. We did have one change between the department and the administrative line. There is an $8,000 other contractual cost that was taken out. That is for the smart bus. So the smart bus at the county level is kind of, I would say, maybe on the chopping block. It may not be funded going forward. So Administrator Niemeyer had asked me to take that out. So that is one change on this budget.
Thank you, Sabrina. Any other questions on the share ride? All right, let's move on to equipment replacement fund. sorry, Alder Not.
Okay. Okay, a couple things. First off, yeah, this is just awareness here. You can see that this year, actual expenses or decrements, I guess, to the fund combined with projected next year, this fund is being decremented by $1 million plus. So this is a concern. That's not a fund we want to spend down to zero because then we don't have an emergency fund and we don't have a fund for replacing and updating too. And then the one comment I also have is when you take a look at fire's new replacement equipment worksheet here, it's item number 12. Chief, you've got office chairs for $6,000 at $500 each. That seems an awful hefty price for chairs. What is that about?
Yeah, so the chairs, just so you know, are pretty much falling apart down at dispatch and in the offices. So we went through whoever we contract through the city contracts through the chairs, and that was the estimate that we were given.
Is there something special about these chairs? I mean, a $500
They're-
chair is a lot of money.
Yeah, the regular office chairs that we have up in the offices.
It seems excessive to me. What am I missing?
I can just add to that a little bit that I think because they're commercial grade, so they last a lot longer. If you were to go to like Office Depot and buy a chair, it'd probably last a year. And so these chairs, like I had replaced our squad room chairs last year, and I think they were somewhere between $500 and $600 a piece also. So yeah, it sounds crazy and it is, but that is how expensive they are.
Okay.
Steven, that was item 812. That where you're looking?
Item 12 on if you take a look at the worksheet is what I was looking at.
Oh,
It says
sorry.
$500 each at 6,000, so it's 12 chairs.
Got it.
Yeah. I don't actually have 205, but yeah.
Alder Wolf, did you have something?
Yes, thank you. I just want to make sure Alder Not was done. Chairs. I know we've talked for years about when we've outfitted the Onalaska Library. We've had these conversations before, and department heads are exactly right. The commercial level, they're so expensive. And I don't know if you've looked up even just online for Office Depot, but you want a decent office chair, it's $500. Something that fits you, it's, all that kind, they just got up so much. And I think we had the same discussion, like when it came to like the pool and the furniture and stuff, but it's just, I get it. I mean, you look at the numbers and it's like, you've got to be kidding me, but that's what they are now. And I'm trying to remember, I know, I'm trying to remember, council had other chairs. Oh, no, it was in the other room. It was in the Alder's. Yeah, well, no, in the Alder's office. We had chairs from 1998 when City Hall was built, and they were those chairs there. So we're sitting at a desk in our Alder's office. There's just 4 chairs there, and the worst chair. So I got hold of a man. I said, well, I talked to Rick, I think we were budgeting like maybe it was like $600 a chair. And then I went to Amanda and she suggested me, how about you and I take a trip downstairs? And we went to the emergency operation, the EO, and I tested everyone out. And so the ones that are in there now, oh, what an upgrade. And it didn't cost us anything. So I think we save where we can, but when it comes to things that people's bodies and they're sitting, I think it's just really important. We don't have to get top of the line, but I think we should really get things that are really well made just for our comfort. So thank you.
Amanda?
I was just going to elaborate a little bit on that. So we order all of our office furniture through Eamon's Business Interiors. They are the state contract bid for furniture for municipalities in the state of Wisconsin, which should guarantee us the lowest price. As Jared mentioned, these are commercial grade chairs. We don't often replace chairs in City Hall, but we also have run out of chairs. And so when we either add new staff or we move stuff around, we're in a position where we have to purchase new chairs. The last time I'm aware we ordered chairs was in 2023. We ordered, because again, we had some staffing changes, additional people in the office, and we needed to order some new chairs. And in 2023, we paid $420.55 a chair. So, you know, I think with inflation, 500 is probably fairly in line. But, you know, as Diane mentioned, they ended up taking the chairs that were originally in 112 for the council chamber offices. When we replaced those chairs, that was, I think, even before COVID, maybe. You know, those chairs were original to City Hall. So, I mean, at the time they were replaced, they were 20 years old. And so I think we get our money and our value out of our office furniture.
Anybody else have anything to add for this one? All right, let's move on to the joint municipal court. Sabrina?
Thanks. I would just add again, this is another fund that is levy funded, so that 87,294 is the portion of the city's costs to run the joint municipal court. The other costs coming from the other municipalities that are part of the joint municipal court.
Thank you, Sabrina.
How many is that?
Is there 5 total, Amanda? Holman, West Salem, Campbell.
Shelby,
Shelby,
although they're not contributing right now, Rockland, Bangor,
Bangor,
and West Salem.
West Salem.
Thank you.
Any other questions on this one? All right, let's move on to debt services. Sabrina?
Pretty self-explanatory, but this is the debt payments that will be made on general obligation debt that relates to the general fund in 2026.
Thank you, Sabrina.
Why is looking under the expenses of the debt service? It looks like in this fiscal year, we have exceeded our total budget by 620,000.
If I,
Just go ahead.
yeah, okay. Just point of order. So the reason that is because we paid off our short-term borrowing, and that's something we decided after we met to set the budget for 2025.
I agree with that. Yeah, that's it. Okay, thank you.
All right, move on to TIF 5. Sabrina?
Thank you. So I also do the TID 5 and TID 6 budgets. The tax increment amount is a preliminary budget. We won't know our final levy until we get closer to preparing the tax bills. So it could be slightly different, but this is an estimate based on prior year tax rates.
Thank you, Sabrina. Looks like this one is kind of hard to predict also.
What'd you say?
Like, it just looks like each year the budget activity is a little bit different. It seems like it's a little bit harder to
Yeah.
predict this one.
So TID 5, this is the ones down here by our property down here by the water. This one our main expense is paying the developer back. So that's why you see principal and interest. And then we budget for other contractual services if we need to rewrite any type of agreement, add anything onto the agreement, We also use this to pay, they help set up our joint review board meetings, so they prepare a packet. We usually work with Ellers, I say they, we usually work with Ellers, and they help us prepare documents for those joint review board meetings.
All right, any other questions on this one? All right, let's move on to TIF 6. All right, let's move on to water utility. Okay, we can move on to cemetery. Oh, sorry, sewer. Sabrina?
The only thing that I wanted to add related to both water, sewer, storm, I know earlier in discussions, we talked about positions and how it doesn't affect the general fund. I would agree with that. It does not affect the general fund, but just want you to be reminded that these costs do get pushed on to the citizens through a fee. So just be mindful of that, that does happen. It's just in a different form, as in the water fee.
Oh, they're not?
Yeah, one question, it is on line 382. Well, I guess it's 58-100-4 82 on the uniform safety attire. This has been at 3,000 for a budget, spent a little over half, went up to 3,500. Then it came a little closer, then it went to 4,000, spent less than half. Now we're at 4,000 again now. Is this, is there a reason why we are over budgeting this year after year?
We actually do a spring and fall order, and we just actually put in the fall order. So this number will, the actual spent will go up. Some of it is new staff. We allow, if we do get new staff, we do allow new staff to order more than existing staff. And in the last 2 years, we've had a lot of existing staff. So when we have staff turnover, like we had a retirement, that new person, whoever comes in to replace them, will be allowed to order more uniform
Okay.
stuff. And if it doesn't get, spent, it stays within the sanitary sewer utility.
Okay.
All right, let's move on to cemetery. Yes, I just had one question on this. Is that for Jared? Does for the columbarium, those niche sales, are we expecting those to, I guess, sell quickly? I guess just out of curiosity, do we?
So we did add some of the increases in the perpetual care fund. You can see that is higher than it's been in previous years because of the niche
Okay.
sales. And the I think we've sold 9 or maybe even 10 already.
I think we're at 10.
I think we're at 10. So we've sold 10 of the 96 units already, which is very good. We'll see. Seems like every week we keep having another one come in. So, but you can see that the perpetual care did go up, and then we did look at the sale of lots too, because part of it's going into the capital improvements, the next line down.
Oh, yeah, I guess when I was looking at the number, when I was looking at the sale of lots, that's kind of where I thought that was going, but that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a separate line item. So thank you. That was my question.
Yep.
All right, let's move on to Omni Center. See anything on this? We can move on to tourism. Alder not?
Yeah, this is another one where there's a staffing or time event specialist position, but in this case, again, it's going to be through other funds, specifically the tourism budget. And I would view this as an exception to one of my concerns as well.
Amanda?
I just had a question actually for Sabrina on room tax. I don't know if council is aware, but the Onalaska Inn has sold, and that is not been a source of room tax. Are we anticipating that that could change for next year?
Yeah, I definitely think so. Especially I think they've talked about some upgrades and so forth. So I definitely think it could. Also, this position truly is fully funded by tourism dollars. So this isn't adding like any type of additional fee or anything of that nature. It'll be fully funded by tourism.
Thank you, Sabrina. I guess I just had a quick question on when we look back to like the 2024 activity under room tax revenue 41210. Obviously that was a really good year. This year's not been as good. I know overall tourism's kind of gone down. You know, that's been a trend. Just out of curiosity, any input on that, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, sorry, Sabrina, I'll jump in. You know, when we sit down and work through this budget with the county tourism director, and they have made in some of their other communities a little bit more aggressive to try to hit these numbers. And now some of those communities are falling behind and not hitting them. So they would rather be a little bit more conservative that we do meet or exceed our numbers rather than pushing out too far. Then we're all of a sudden saying we're not going to meet those numbers.
Perfect.
That's why you see we're a little bit more conservative on our revenue numbers.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I was just curious. But I know, like I said, you know, so through some of the meetings I've been to, it seems like tourism numbers have been going down, dollars been going down. So
some of the areas ours is staying very strong. And I think it's the work that the staff at the Omni Center are doing. We're keeping things and people are here. So, which is great.
Great. Thank you, Dan. Anybody else? All right, let's move on to stormwater utility. Okay, we can move on to the Gunderson Lutheran parking ramp.
One more year.
Yep. Any other question on this one? Oh, Sabrina?
This is the one budget change that's on the sheet in front of you that I am requesting just to increase the property tax amount to based on what our agreement is with Gunderson for the property tax levy. Otherwise, the only expense out of this fund is related to the debt service. And then that $5,000, that is a lease that we pay on a yearly basis to Gunderson for maintenance costs.
Thank you, Sabrina. All right, we can move on to CDA management tab. Not seeing any questions on this. I guess that brings us to the end of our budget book. I guess next we can talk more about certain things. Is there anything we want to make motions on? Or Stephen?
Okay. Yeah, I'll be making some motions. We'll see if they get support or not. But I do want to make one quick statement here is I do want to support all of these requests for additional hours and hires. What I would recommend, I don't think I need to make a motion on this, we just would have to schedule. I recommend that we reconvene the city funding discussion group with a specific goal of finding out a way on long-term to pay for them. And by long-term, it would certainly be for at least the next 5 years so that we can figure out a way to include them in the next year's budget. I just firmly believe we need to have the funds on, we have to identify how we're going to pay for them long-term before we hire people, because it's a reoccurring expense. And if we hire people without having the funds, it ultimately inevitably leads to now we have to fire people because we don't have the funds anymore. And so with that in mind, I would like to reconvene that over a period of months again here and figure out a way to fix these needs in the 2027, 2028, 2029, and 30, and so et cetera budgets. So with that said, my first motion is to, this is HR, Human Resources. Let me get the wording right here. Why am I missing this? Finance. There it is. To change the staffing request, increasing the Human Resources Office Specialist from 16 hours to 30 hours a week to 20 hours a week. So we go from 16 to 20 hours a week. And then with the savings off of removing the other 10 hours a week, moving that over into that equipment replacement fund, which again, we're decrementing $1 million between this year and next. So this will help a little bit on that. So that is my motion, to go from 16 to 20 instead of 16 to 30 and take those remaining, the savings from that and put it in the equipment replacement fund.
I'll second it.
We have a motion by Alder Knott. It's been actually it has to be one of us, right? Yeah, I'll second that. So we have a motion by Alder Knott, it's been seconded by Alder Milky to change the position. Instead of the budgeted request of the 30 hours per week, we're going to make this go to the 20 hours per week and use the additional 10 hours of that money to go to the equipment replacement fund. Is that correct, Stephen?
Correct.
Any discussion?
I just want to make a point. Can we make that a permanent position versus LTE?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to clarify that.
That was part of this request too. I'm just changing the hour request.
Oh.
Wasn't that?
Oh, I see what you're doing. You're just changing the hours on it. Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
perfect. Just want to make sure.
Yeah, correct.
Okay, so just to clarify, this will be to change it from 16 to 20 hours. It'll be a permanent position,
Yeah.
technically still part-time, correct? Okay. Alder Wolf?
Thank you, Chair. So I'd like to talk about a couple things that may or may not affect the motion on the floor. Couple things that we haven't talked about tonight. One is I understand that sometime last year, this council approved dollars to go towards a wage study. And we were told at that time by our city administrator that it wouldn't affect 2025, but there was a possibility it could affect 2026 budget. I'll also add that, in my opinion, that, and I've confirmed with the city administrator to make sure I understood this. I think he said at least 2 or 3 different meetings that do note that he was looking to use this wage study as a tool to see where are we at. It wasn't, oh, it's just a slam dunk. Yes, we're going to go ahead, raise everyone up. It was just a tool to see where we were at. So that's the first thing that I liked. If the city administrator could kind of give us an update, like where is that at? And because I was positive we were supposed to have it by now. So, and I think it's just really important that this kind of folds into this motion, because it's like, because as Alder Knott has rightly mentioned a couple of times this evening, is like, how are we going to pay for things? So I reserve my time. Thank you.
Sure. The status is that it is currently with Baker Tilly, and they're doing some final reviews. I'm going to back up and kind of start a little bit further. So we started the process earlier this year, I believe it was, and didn't move along as quickly as we would like it to have moved through. The initial information was sent over to Baker Tilly. They did a review initially, sent it back over, needed to work on some fine tuning of things. And so now it is back with Baker Tilly now. So I would have to ask Amy how long she thinks that will take, but that's where it's at right now. And I would expect that the next step is going to be, and I'm speculating here, is that it will get the results of that here in the not too distant future.
What was the last part? Oh, not too
Get-
distant future. Thank you.
Correct.
Okay.
Mhm. I don't know if there's anything to add on that.
Yeah, I would say the Baker Tilly project is probably, I mean, if I had to guess, it's like 80% there, right? I mean, so they have the information, they're analyzing, they're putting it, the final touches, they're putting that all together. So we haven't seen what that result is as of yet. I will say because of your HR department has been heavily burdened, there was a delay. And again, I will just be transparent with it that I wasn't able to respond as quickly as I wanted to because I had a staff member who was out for an entire month when this was due. And if I could also speak to the fact of just the amount of work that comes through the HR department. I know this is off the topic of the Baker Tilly project, but it's one example. Again, with your positions, adding positions, when I started with the city, we had 102 positions. That number has risen to 118. And now whether they impact the general fund or not, it does impact your HR department. And so there are going to be delays. I mean, right now we're at 40 days to fill a position, and that is doing the best that we can. So recruitment, wages, benefits, onboarding, offboarding, safety, labor relations, personnel issues. There's a whole host of things that are impacted when you don't have a completely fully staffed HR department. Typically that standard is one HR professional for every 50 employees. And again, if that standard, we are right about there at 118 employees. But again, that number keeps creeping up, and that also doesn't account for the 300 seasonal staff that we have as well. So again, we are grossly understaffed by those standards. So again, just one additional reason why it's hard to keep up with the workload.
And thank you for that. So by my calculations, that's like, I think it was 18%, 16 or 18% increase. And like you said, that's just, and I have to assume that part-time or seasonal, I'm assuming, just because I know, like, for example, like Park and Rec, they've been expanding programs, they've been tremendously successful, but there's, if anyone goes in, and I think we could say this about any one of our department heads, you go into their office and you look at their board and how full it is. And they don't seem, and no matter, even if they're erasing stuff, they're still putting more things on. So it's not like they ever sit there with a blank board. And thank you for that, both of you. So the second and last thing that I like to discuss briefly, it's something way out of the box. I would just ask that, how do I want to say this? It's just a thought. I'm just putting it on the table. So the proposed non-union is 1.5, 1.5. So January 1, 1.5 COLA, and the 1.5 come July 1st, correct?
That is correct.
What I'd like to remind people is one staff member's 1.5, 1.5 is not equal to everyone else's, depending upon what job they have, what duties they have, what their rank level, whatever that's called, that if they're I'm going back to government, it's not like E16s, they're what grade, thank you, the grade. Unless someone, the way I understand it, unless someone is on a work performance plan, that everyone is also getting their step. I'm going to keep police and fire out of this because you're unions, so I'm not referring to police and any police and fire contracts or anything. But everyone is receiving the same percent. And when we're talking about, I remember the years back in the 2000s, I mean, and I think both Dan Wick and Jared Holter remember the years that it was 0%, 0%, 0%, or 0.5% COLA. You know, there are some really lean years there. No way would I ever propose that again. But I would be personally kind of interested in knowing, and do know, Sabrina, that I didn't think about this until the break. So this is not, or else I would have asked you before. And I don't know how one would decide, you know, if you see like the 118, you know, whether it's seasonal, just seasonal, they don't get any COLA. So they're on that plan. Okay. So it'd be pretty easy, I would think, I would envision to know the number of people. So say if you use the 118 number, maybe it's a different number, I don't know. But if you take those 118 people and you tally up what their proposed COLA would be for 2026 year end, but divide it by 118 people, 120 people, whatever the number is, maybe if you want to save some money, I assume that we would save money, is maybe you go ahead and you give a flat call or a flat amount to each and every person. Because again, you know, they're already getting their steps per our grades and such. And most people in private industry, they don't know what steps are. And I would venture to guess that there's a lot of our taxpayers who they've never heard of steps. Now, I'm not saying that our staff don't deserve them, they don't work for them. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying what the real world is in the private industry where I come from, where my family has always come from. Because it's the taxpayers who are paying for the steps. The taxpayers are paying for the COLA. And I'm just looking for if we're looking for to try to fill new positions or increase our positions, I don't say the F word very often, but I don't know if it's fair, just thinking about it, if it's fair that, and I'm going to pick on Rick just because I'm going to pick on you because you'll take it well. I don't know if you're 1.5 is really justified versus the lowest person. You know what I mean? Because they're already getting the steps. So that's just something I'm just throwing out there, because if we're trying to find ways to fund, unless someone can convince me otherwise, I'm certainly open to input, but I just don't know because when you start looking at one of our early pages and you start looking at those numbers just keep getting higher and higher for pay every year. And rightly so. I'm not saying that people don't deserve those wages. I'm just saying, how do we find some happy medium so we could maybe fill some additional hours versus not? Thank you.
Point of order, I don't know that this has anything to do with the HR position. That's before the conversation right now.
Yeah, I mean, we're probably a little bit off topic to the motion at hand since
I
there's
wanted to bring it up before you made your motion, but you beat me to it, so I wasn't able to, so. But anyway, I just don't know. And I guess I'd like to hear a counter, you know, why sub one at the top should get so much more when they're already, I mean, I don't know.
Well, they do the salary studies based off of the responsibilities within those positions in this region, and doing it any other way is going to upset that, because you're going to inflate the lower grades, if you will, to where now they are over time going to continue to become more of a higher grade pay, which would exceed their responsibilities as identified within the industry, if you will.
Or it could be a one-time stipend instead of adding to their salary. I'm just looking for money. I think there's a lot of need.
I would like to get back onto our current motion.
Amanda, did you want to add something, Amanda?
I just, you know, from the legal side of things, we look a lot at data and risk. And I think my one caution would be, we do have this Baker Tilly study that's really going to look at that, that's supposed to be coming here in the next month. And so I think I would be hesitant to take an approach like that prior to seeing those numbers. I think that's a great discussion point for maybe after we have that data. But I also think, you know, you do something like that and then you get that study back, and here we're under market for, you know, 75% of our positions, and then you've just created a greater problem without knowing it. And so to Steve's point, I think, you know, that's why we rely on these studies.
Thank you, Amanda. Mayor?
And maybe Sabrina was going to say this, but I just would like to, for the record, have down what is the difference between with this position that we're discussing right now. It's currently for 2025, it's a LTE position, funded at 16 hours. And so making it a permanent position, what are the impacts of that to the city, both in monetary and non-monetary terms? And then what would be the total cost at 20 hours with the moving to permanent? Just so we can have it in the record. Thank you.
So I have it at 16. I'd have to rerun some numbers to get the 20 to 20 hours. But it'll likely be around 35,000 would be my guess. At the 16 hours to 30 hours, it was a difference of 39,745. But I can rerun it at 20 if that is the will of the committee. I also just had a follow-up question, if I can, to Diane. When you said taking because I can run those numbers for you and have it ready for you, but when you said taking the current COLA, the total cost of the current COLA, and then divide it by all the non-union staff, and then giving that to each person, how would that save us any money? Like, are you saying you want to know the cost to give 1,000 to each one? Because it wouldn't save us any money if we, not, at least not for 2026, if we did that. Because those dollars would still be spent if we took the total COLA cost and divided it by the people that are going to get it. We would still be spending that, right? Unless I'm understanding incorrectly by what you're asking. I just want to make sure I know what you're asking so I can get you the data. But I'm like, if I took the total COLA cost for 2026 and divided it by all of the individuals, that would tell us like how much per person. And are you saying you would want to know what that is and you'd want to lower it? Or I guess I'm just trying to figure out what you're asking for.
I think I was looking at the total, whatever that number was. How much is that total by year end, just for the COLA? So you're saying if you divide that by, that dollar amount,
and gave it to everyone equally, you'd still be spending the same amount, right? Like, or are you saying you would do something lower than that?
you could do a stipend, a one-time stipend, and everyone just gets the same dollar amount. And then it wouldn't have to be the 1.5 one. And do you happen to have that number possibly for the total COLA?
I could get it for you here within a couple minutes, but there's one other thing that I think is important to note, and I'm going to let Amy make it because I think it comes better from her. But there are some staff who are at the end of their step, and I know Amy knows how many that is. So that would be taking away, like if we took a COLA away, that would take that away from them. So just
It would never be my intention.
right. But I know Amy knows the number maybe off the top of her head. I think it's like 11, 14.
It's around 10 employees that are reaching the top or at the top of that. Step 11 is the max step on our pay scale. And that is one of the things that Baker Tilly has also been tasked with, is what are some solutions to that? Again, it's an internal study, and along with some suggestions on where we can go with that.
Alder Lohendorf.
Maybe not an option at all, but have we ever considered working with like college interns for some of these assistant specific type positions? And have we done that, and do we know what it looks like? I mean, it might not be feasible for us at all, but maybe it could be cost saving and a way to give back to some of our local students too.
Yeah, there are a number of departments that do use interns, and so that is something that is used throughout city departments. I think in terms for human resources, we're looking for some consistency. We're looking for some regular consistencies and things that this position can own and kind of take on and do on a regular basis for us.
Amanda.
Just for the record, since we got fairly off topic on that, could Joanne perhaps restate the motion for us?
The motion was by Stephen Ott to change the staff request to increase the HR office specialist position from 16 hours a week to 20 hours a week, with the savings going into the equipment replacement fund. And this will become a permanent part-time position.
Have any other discussion? Yeah, we're just gonna wait for Sabrina quick.
I'm getting there. Sorry. I was also grabbing Diane's number two, so I'm just trying to do all.
Alderman Ash?
I don't really have a vote here, do I?
Oh.
So I-
Next week, though.
We do on Monday, though.
Yeah.
We don't want to open up the whole can of worms next week. We want to address.
well, I don't have a question. It's just that 4 hours. I mean, why don't you do 25? I mean, and then the couple hours that you're going to actually be given to the equipment replacement fund isn't that much. That's really all I got to say. I
It
think-
will add up, because I'm going to be making other motions if they pass, that gets added and added and added. But I mean, you're still adding a 25% increase on their hours, 16 to 20.
And if we go to 25 hours, is that considered a full-time position rather than 20? Still part-time?
It is part-time. I don't remember.
30 hours is the limit is where,
I don't remember when they kick into benefits. I'll let Amy answer that.
So at 20 hours, I mean, there are eligible for certain benefits, 50% of dental, Allstate, some benefits. When you get to around 24 hours, so 25 hours, that's when they would be mandatorily enrolled into WRS. And with WRS comes the health insurance enrollment. Again, it's at a 50% premium. So there is pretty much that full benefit package with the caveat they would not be eligible for sick leave or vacation or anything like that. That would hit at 30 hours.
Sabrina?
So rough dollar figure, $34,184 would be the difference that would be added to equipment replacement. And Diane, your number. Just the total COLA cost is 120,000. But that's including water, sewer, storm, like all funds, all non-union.
We have any other discussion on this topic? Mayors?
Sabrina, so with that 34, that's just in wages, and at 20 hours, a person isn't eligible for any cost benefits, benefits that have a cost to the city?
Correct, yep. So that is including obviously if at 30 hours, we did budget for the health insurance increase. So that's really where that big change is from.
So at 30 hours, I had wrote down 58,814.
Correct.
And so we would be having a savings from the current budget at about 24, just really rough.
Sorry, 24,000 would be the salary amount, and 34,184 would be what we would add. That would be the savings between where we're currently at. Sorry, I told you it backwards. but-
Okay, I misunderstood.
Yep. So 34,184 would be the savings to go from 30 to 20.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? Just a reminder for this one, the voting is just Alder Knott, Alder Lowendorf, and Alder Milky. And then this will come back to the next meeting.
That's for a roll call.
You want a roll call? Sure.
Point of order, can she ask for a roll call if she's not voting?
I'll ask for a roll call vote.
Not a lot next week, so it doesn't matter.
Okay, does anyone need a reminder what the motion is? Okay, right, Alder Knott,
Aye.
Alder Milky,
Aye.
Alder Lowendorf.
Aye.
All right, so motion passes 3-0. And before we move on to the next one, Alder Knott, I'd like to get the budget changes from 2026 proposed budget submission worksheet. I'd like someone to make a motion on that and get that approved.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Alder Lowendorf to approve. It's been seconded by Alder Knott. And this is for the budget changes from the 2026 proposed budget submission that Sabrina went through earlier. Any discussion on this? Sabrina?
If I could just add, this will come forward again to you next week with any of the changes that are happening tonight. So the one that was just listed will be on the sheet on Monday night. So you'll have them all in front of you updated.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Any discussion on this? All right, we just do a normal vote. So all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Right, Aldernott?
Okay, again, I'd really like to see the funding discussion group to get together to how we can fund all three of these positions that Chief Ashbeck wants. But as far as the budget here is, I am going to make a motion to remove both of the 4-hour increases. Specifically, that's the 4-hour increase for the admin assistant and 4-hour increase for the record specialist.
And are you keeping that at LTE? Is that a full, what was the, for that part, Stephen?
Are they LTEs now?
The
Well, it
administrative
was-
assistant is an LTE.
Okay. And is Chief, are you wanting a permanent part-time? Got it, yes. And again, I'm just changing the hour or removing the hours, but they can keep the permanent part-time employee in there. That's fine.
So the motion is to basically change this to each position being 16 hours a week?
Yeah, basically what they are now, with the exception that the admin assistant then becomes a permanent part-time.
Thank you. I'll make a second on that. So we have a motion by Alder Knott and seconded by Alder Milky to change the positions for the administrative assistant and record specialist. Instead of the 20 hours per week, we were going to change this to 16 hours a week. And that would be the motion.
Oh, and I'm sorry, and with the remaining funds is also to go into, to replenish the equipment replacement fund.
Any discussion? Alder Wolf?
Thank you. Could we have a dollar amount, what the savings would be if the motion passes and,
14, if I remember right.
1436? Thank you.
Any other discussion? Alder Benash?
The same question I had before was, how does that help if the funds that were going to be given to the department going into the equipment replacement fund? How does that really save us any money?
Well, if we're going to say 34,000 doesn't save us any, 14,000 doesn't save us any, and of course I'm going to have one more. Well, it does when it all adds up. That's the piece. It's incremental, but it's a pretty substantial sum in the end. And this is going to help to offset what is $1 million decrement from this year and next year on that equipment replacement fund. It's a substantial decrement we're looking at. And we do need that equipment replacement fund. So.
I guess one of my concerns is, yes, we want these positions, but also, next year,
Yeah.
I mean,
Pay
it's
for
like, it's hard to, we want to hire 3 firefighters. We want to do these things for the city. So it's hard, I would rather not have to fire someone next year and have someone lose their job because we overspent, I guess, is kind of where my concern comes from.
And when this funding group meets, I mean, I want to look at all of these requests because again, there's no doubt in my mind that every one of the 3 firefighters, there's no doubt in my mind, these are all needed. It's just how do we resource them? And I want to look at how do we resource them over the next 5 years minimum. So, and then look at possibly hiring them.
Sabrina?
Thank you. I would also just like to note this, by putting money into equipment replacement, it does help replenish the equipment replacement fund, but it also puts us in a position where in 2027, if we're taking a look at the budget and we have a shortfall, it provides an opportunity of, I just gave you a number that could help pay for the COLA or could help pay for the increase in health insurance costs or things of that nature. So it does help us for future years. That is the benefit. And prior to me coming to the city, that was something that my predecessor was able to do fairly regularly, to put some money away to help for the next year. We haven't been able to do that in my time here for several reasons. We grew, we added more positions in my first year here for both police and fire, for public safety. And then the state gave us some additional funding a few years ago, so we were able to put some money away to kind of help put us in a good position for the next year.
Amy's got her hand too.
Amy?
I would just like to add, from an employee perspective and a benefit perspective, the value for an employee, I would like for the city to consider a regular, permanent, part-time, whatever you want to call it, position at 20 hours a week is when they start being eligible for benefits: vision, dental, accident, critical illness, cancer benefits. Those kick in at 20 hours a week. So anything below that, for a regular employee, they don't have that benefit of those certain benefits. Again, just looking to advocate for regular positions being a minimum of 20 hours a week.
Thank you, Amy. Chief Ashbeck?
I would just also like to add that it's extremely difficult to find competent, hardworking employees at 16 hours a week. So the more that we can, even at 20 hours a week, try to retain good staff, excellent staff that we have. I mean, the amount of time that it takes to try to recruit, hire, train, and that revolving door is difficult. So I'm just advocating that when we have excellent staff, I'd like to try to keep them.
Thank you, Chief. Alder Lowendorf?
I actually forgot to ask earlier, is this position vacant right now or is it already filled?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Oh, sorry, is this position already, or these positions, or no, it's just one, never mind.
There's two.
There's two.
It's two.
Yeah, there is. Okay. Are they currently filled or are they vacant at the moment?
They currently are both filled.
Okay.
Yep. Yes, with 16 hours a week.
Okay. So we would be increasing that person's hours then. Got it.
Correct.
Well, the current motion is not to increase the hours.
Right.
Correct. Okay.
Alder Wolf?
Thank you. Quick question. Sabrina, did I hear you say that the equipment replacement fund, we can use that for COLA, and did I hear that right?
No, so it helps for the next year because we've been able to put some of the levy dollars into equipment replacement to help fund the equipment replacement fund for 2026. But then when I'm budgeting for 2027, it's an easy way, we could take that money and use it in the general fund.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Knew there was an explanation.
Alder Jurassic?
Yeah, Chair. The question I had was, Amy, when you advertise for a position and you cannot put in that they're going to be getting these benefits, is it a lot harder to get people to come?
Absolutely. Again, just even speaking from my perspective, having a staff member as an LTE, whether or not that person is going to continue on year after year is never a guarantee, especially when they don't know if their position is going to be here the following year. And so having that regular position, they're subject to the non-represented pay scale so that they know that there's step increases more than likely to occur and things like that. And again, the benefit aspect where they do have some benefits associated with the position is also very helpful and makes it a more appealing to attract those candidates, attract that talent.
Thank you. That's what I was looking at also. Somebody had mentioned that when you compare government employees to the outside, they don't know about steps. But what we're looking at mostly is people that are in government and want to stay in government and know about steps. So that's what they're really looking at to keep that job. That's just a train of thought. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Jurassic. Chief, if I could ask you a question. For these two positions, the administrative assistant, record specialist, I guess could you just give us a quick synopsis of like, what is it that they do daily and why would this extra 4 hours make a difference to you and to the department? I'm kind of putting you on the spot here, but just curious if you could just give us a quick kind of synopsis of that.
Absolutely. So the record specialist, currently that position is working on a backlog of open records requests with videos. And so, being that we get over 800 video requests or open records requests a year, we're constantly in a backlog of up to a year for somebody to get a video if you requested it today. That's how far our backlog is. And so adding those extra 4 hours is certainly not going to clean up the backlog, but it's going to help us inch closer to that. Our administrative assistant, she is really Tim and I's backbone with handling all of the purchase orders and requisitions, working with our vendors to get quotes on items, just all that day-to-day busy work that takes our time up trying to do all of those tasks. And so she's just so efficient at it that I hate to lose her at 16 hours.
Thank you, Chief. Any other discussion? Alder Jurassic?
Chief, going back to that same individual you're talking about with the year it takes to ask for and receive, is that running any court cases where they could throw the whole thing out?
There are situations that we run into, yes, that, like I think municipal court had a case recently where they were like the trial was being delayed because they were waiting on the video for that particular case. So we do run into some issues, certainly.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? All right, we can move it to a vote. We want to do roll call? Are we going to do a normal vote?
That mattered to me.
All right, we'll just do a normal. So all those in favor, aye. Please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Did you vote, Kathy?
I don't know how to vote.
Well, all right, then we'll have to do a roll call.
Again, to clarify what the motion is, this is a motion made by Stephen Knott, second by Mike Milky, to keep both the administrative assistant and the record specialist positions in the police department at 16 hours per week. The administrative assistant will become permanent part-time, and the savings will go into the equipment replacement fund. Stephen Knott.
Aye.
Kathy Lohendorf.
Aye.
Mike Milky.
Nay. Motion passes 2-1. And we'll Alder Knott.
Okay, last one for me anyway. Under street. Make a motion to remove the new full-time maintenance worker position and move those savings over in the equipment replacement fund.
I'll second discussion. So we have a motion by Alder Knott, it's been seconded by Alder Milky. This would be to remove the position of full-time maintenance worker. Any discussion?
Again, I support hiring this individual. I just want us to know how we're going to pay for them, not just next year, but the following years as well. We're just going to end up removing the person is what it amounts to if we don't figure that out. So this is premature. We need to get our collective business together here and figure out how we're going to take care of all of these needs for the long term before we act.
Jared, oh, go ahead. Do you want to keep going? I just was going to ask Jared a question. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. That's right.
Before turning it over to Jared, I just want to clarify that then you would move that 47,000 to equipment replacement.
Yes, yeah. Thought I'd said that.
My question is for Jared Holter about this position. I mean, currently, I guess, what is it, like right now, someone's filling this role, they're kind of doing two jobs at once, correct? So like, how is it, if this were not there, what impact would that have on either, like, I guess, a few people in your department or you overall?
Yeah, so currently the stormwater, reason we add half position in being stormwater is currently there's 1.2 people budgeted maintenance workers in the stormwater division. And they do all the street sweeping falls under the stormwater division. So we have a full-time employee pretty much sweeping streets for 8 months straight. Then you do that for 8 months straight. So you've got 0.66, you've got another 0.66 of a position approximately that is maintaining the 500 manholes, 1,000 catch basins, and 52 stormwater outfalls you have in the city on a frontline basis. So, you know, we don't, now those things are long-term assets that last 7,500 years, so they don't break that often. But if you go around town and see how many catch basins are in the city that see barricaded, those are all, you know, some of that we contract out, sometimes we fix it in-house. So that's the reason for half the street time position or the stormwater position. The street position, a lot of that depends on, we've been very fortunate over the last 30 years. We've invested in our streets heavily and perform a very robust street maintenance program. So we don't have to send out a crew that's just pothole filling 3 times a week. But as we get more streets, you keep adding incrementally more streets, it's more streets to plow, it's more maintenance to do. And we all understand that, but with that over time, it just adds up. And what we're doing is we're robbing from Peter to pay Paul. So whatever we have that has to be done is what goes to the top of the list. And sometimes we don't do activities that, you know, would fall. Tree trimming is a good one. If it snows in the winter, we never get any tree trimming done because we just don't have enough staff. So currently we run 8 plow trucks, 3 unloaders, and a pickup truck to do alleys. That's 12 pieces of equipment, and you have 6 street department workers.
Thank you. And I guess just one other follow-up, you know, for this, you know, if there's something that happens that we need to have fixed, you know, we don't have much of our overtime budget, right? So I guess, was this creating an issue with that? I don't know did you hear me, Jared? Sorry, it's all right. I'll restate it. So I was just wondering, so, you know, with us, you know, having to have somebody else do this and add extra responsibilities, you know, is this going into overtime and creating an extra cost for the city as well? Or is it something where you're just able to do it in the time frame you have to do it and just pass it the next day and kind of try to play catch up?
Our street department overtime budget tends to be heavily dependent on winter activities. The reality of what's happening is the utilities are funding positions that aren't, and they're doing street related duties. We are prioritizing within our department what needs to be done and with the people we have. So during the winter time, you are using water, sewer, and storm sewer employees to plow streets.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion from any of the council members? Kathy?
For Jared, if we were to add this position, do you think that would reduce the amount of overtime needed then as well? Obviously, it's still probably dependent on weather and what have you, but.
It's dependent on the, you know, winter activities, but you know, we've been fortunate. We discussed that at budget time with the administrator and the finance director. Last 2 years, we've had a relatively lean winters. About 4 years ago, we had, you know, on average, we have 40 inches of snow. Last year, we had like 24. We had 70 inches of snow a few years ago, and I had to come in with a budget report because we were 30,000 over in salt contractual, and we were about 15,000 over in overtime. So it's swing so up and down that it you know, could we be a few thousand less? Yeah, we could, but it's not going to be a large number.
Okay, thank you.
Other not?
So again, I'm not questioning the need. I understand it. We need to identify resources, how we're going to pay for it long-term first. And one of the things, if you haven't noticed, what I have been trying to compromise, so everybody here is getting a win who put in the request. Well, I guess fire didn't, but you've got your engineer, if this goes through and passes as is. Dan's got a tourism person with also other funds. If this goes through as passes as is. Police. I mean, so everyone's got something. I mean, I am trying to compromise here too, to achieve this goal. But keep in mind, even if we pass all these, which does add up in my from where I'm keeping track, if this passes, you'll have about $95,000 less decrement next year in equipment replacement fund. You're still gonna have a decrement, still gonna be substantial. So, yeah. I mean, well, as in over $400,000 of decrement. Well, at least it won't be 500,000.
Yeah. Any other discussion? Go ahead, Alder Benash.
But about funding this maintenance worker under the general fund, isn't this funded out of the street budget and the utilities budget? And how does that affect the general fund? If it's being funded through a different source, is it not?
The street fund is a general fund support account. That's a taxpayer funded general fund account, the street department. That's not a utility account, enterprise account.
Well, I'm looking at the maintenance worker here. It says funded half out of street and half out of utilities budget.
Correct. Half would be stormwater, which is utilities, enterprise fund based. The other half would be the street department, which is tax levy, general fund based.
That's the 47,000.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? All right, we'll just go to a roll call vote for this then as well.
Okay,
You want to restate, sorry, Joanne, would you like to just restate the motion? Thank you.
not a problem. The motion on the floor was made by Stephen Knott and seconded by Mike Milky to remove the full-time maintenance worker position and move those savings to the equipment replacement fund. We'll do a roll call vote. Mike Milky,
Aye.
Kathy Lohendorf,
Aye.
Stephen Knott.
Aye.
All right, motion passes unanimously. Any other motions people would like to make today?
I believe we need to make a motion to approve the budget and move it on to Monday.
I will make that
Well,
motion. No?
There are other agenda items.
Oh.
I'm not sure the order that we need to handle
Before
it.
Yeah, before we do that, I just want to bring up one other item. You may recall at the budget presentation at the October meeting, there was some discussion about the consultant for the fire protection assessment fee. That there was originally a thought of putting that in the 2026 budget. My recommendation at that was that we address it by designating some funds. I believe we talked out of interest or out of, remind me which fund that was to come out of. But I just wanted to address that because if it's to be included in the 2026 budget, we need to address that now. If it's not to be, I want to talk about how we're going to fund that mechanism. So if you recall that the fire protection assessment fee is the fee that would be utilized with the fire department in particular, that we have a consultant that we would hire that would assist us in getting that set up, implemented, and obviously we would have some conversations before that fully gets implemented, but the consultant would be the one that would help us get that established because there are some intricacies as to how that would work. So
do you need a motion to approve the, sorry, go ahead. All right,
thanks
Sabrina,
for being
I'll-
on today.
Yeah, all right.
Thank you. My recommendation for that, when we talked about it before, was to budget for it. I am definitely not opposed to that. But after further discussion, I think it would make the most sense to maybe designate some dollars out of the general fund. out of the reserve fund into, we have this fund called City Study, which is where we took the $16,000 for the Baker Tilly study that is being currently done. So my recommendation would be that in the next couple of months, as we're getting through the end of 2025, that I would come forward to designate the $30,000 into that city study fund to pay for this. That would be my recommendation. But if you would like it to be part of the operating budget, we could definitely add it as another change, but that would be my recommendation.
Do you want this to be a budget item for 2026?
We want it funded for 2026.
Sorry, when, do you want the funding in 2026 or in end of 2025?
My recommendation would be that at the end of 2025, I would designate dollars for it to be paid for in 26. But if you would like to add it into the operating budget, you most definitely can. But my recommendation would be to do it that way.
I mean, you're comfortable with us doing it in the 2025?
Mhm.
Okay.
And we would designate those dollars into that city study fund.
All right, well, I'll make a motion that we designate basically $30,000 from our reserve. What?
Do you want that now?
No, I would just wait and I'll bring
Oh,
it,
we just want to wait till.
I'll
the
bring it
council
forward
meeting?
to ANF.
Okay, okay. I'm sorry. I
Likely-
thought we needed to do it now.
Likely in January,
Okay,
as long as that is the intent of the committee, and that would be what I would bring forward. Likely in February, I would bring forward that we designate that money. If you want it done sooner, I most definitely can, but usually I wait till the end of the year, but I could bring it forward to ANF next month if
Okay.
you want me to.
yeah, that's fine. I just misunderstood.
And that was partially mine. I just wanted to make sure we addressed it because again, it was talked about once upon a time, putting it in the budget. And then I changed my recommendation was that we do essentially what Sabrina's saying. So before we closed and moved the budget on to council or to public hearing, I just wanted to make sure that we touched base on that beforehand. So.
Thank you, Rick. Mayor?
I think the important thing is that if somebody isn't in favor of moving forward with with getting a consultant to look into getting the fire protection assessment fee, you need to speak up about it because we're trying to get things lined up to get a consultant so we can figure out what we need to do to make a decision if that will work for us or not. So we just don't want to expend the time or money if people are not in favor of doing that.
Understood. Any other discussion on this? All right, not seen any. So do we need a motion now for to approve the 2026, what we've done tonight?
With-
I'll move to approve the 2026 operating budget and move forward to the public hearing.
And we have a motion by Alder Knott, it's been seconded by Alder Lohendorf. Do you want me to recap?
With changes, yeah.
Yep. Do you need me to recap the changes?
No.
No?
I'll bring them forward via the budget change sheet.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we have a motion by Alder Knott, it's been seconded by Alder Lohendorf for approval of this budget. Any discussion? Alder Knott, or sorry, Alder Wolf?
Thank you. So Sabrina, do you have a total tally for the 3 or 4 motions that passed that Alder Knott made? That we are looking to
Yeah,
move
so that total is $95,220.
95,220.
Yep.
Perfect, thank you.
Any other discussion?
Just, I guess, put on the record too, if people are reading that the public hearing is November 10th at 6 PM.
Correct.
So we'll get that in the minutes too.
All right, not seeing any other discussion, so we can just do a regular vote on this. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, let's move on to item 5, resolution 25-2025 to increase the salaries for the common council. And I can hand this over to Rick. Do you want to start with this one?
I'll turn this over to Sabrina.
Yeah, so I calculate the numbers based on Amanda's ordinance related, or is it, yeah, ordinance related to how the council members' salaries are calculated. When you go into office, you don't get a raise for your 2 years that you're in office, but those 2 years, we take the COLA that is given to the non-union and we add that. So that's where you see the increases for both the positions that would be elected in 2026 and then the council president as well. And I'll let Amanda.
Even though it is set by ordinance, by law, we're required to basically give the public notice of any changes to elected officials' salaries, which is why we pass a resolution every year.
And I would also just note that these are in the proposed budget that was given to you tonight, the change.
And this is historically a bit of a change. We used to vote on our salaries separate. Now we tie it to the COLA of the non-union employees. So it means we're not special anymore. So, which is a good thing in my mind. So I'll move to approve.
I'll second. So we have a motion by Alder Knott. It's been seconded by Alder Milky to approve. Any discussion? Not seeing any. I guess one thing I would say is, this position is something that we do put time into. I think that I'm compensated well enough right now, but I do understand, with cost of living, things like that have gone up, that we'd bring this forward. So I guess, yeah, I just, it's something that's, I guess, appreciated that it was brought forward. Any other discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 2-1. And we'll move on to item 6, adjournment.
I'll motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion to adjourn by Alder Lowenworth and seconded by Alder Knott. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned at 6:35. Thank you, everybody.